Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I've got some absolutely wild relationship drama. Straight from Reddit is so unhinged that you might question if these are even legit. But before we dive into this chaos, grab a snack, get comfortable, and let's explore some relationship disasters that will probably make you feel a lot better about your own love life. Our first story comes from someone facing the ultimate relationship ultimatum. And honestly, the choice they're being forced to make is heartbreaking. My girlfriend hates my dog. I'm 28 and I've been with my girlfriend Sarah for about 8 months now. Everything between us has been pretty great, except for one major issue that's starting to tear us apart. I have a 3-year-old golden retriever named Max, who's basically been my best friend since I adopted him from the shelter. Max is the sweetest, most well-behaved dog you could ever meet. He's house-trained, doesn't chew furniture, barely barks, and he's amazing with kids and other animals. When Sarah first met Max, she seemed fine with him. She'd pet him occasionally, and even brought him treats a few times. I honestly thought we were all going to be one happy family. But over the past few months, Sarah's attitude toward Max has completely changed. She started complaining that he sheds too much, even though I vacuum regularly and brush him every day. Then she said he smells, so I started giving him baths twice a week and bought expensive air fresheners for my apartment. Nothing I do seems to make her happy when it comes to Max. The complaints keep escalating. Now she says Max takes up too much of my time and attention. She gets upset when I take him for walks or when he wants to sit on the couch with us during movies. She started making comments about how people who are obsessed with their pets are immature and using animals as substitutes for real relationships. Last week, things came to a head when Sarah told me she's been looking at apartments for us to move in together. She said she's found the perfect place, but they don't allow pets. When I told her that was a deal breaker because I wouldn't abandon Max, she lost it. She said I was choosing a dog over our relationship and that if I really loved her, I'd find Max a new home. She actually used the words, "It's either me or the dog." I couldn't believe she was giving me an ultimatum like that. I tried to explain that Max isn't just a pet to me, he's family. I've had him through some of the darkest times in my life, including when I lost my job last year and went through a really bad depression. Max was there for me every single day, never judging, never leaving my side. The idea of just giving him away because my girlfriend finds him inconvenient makes me feel sick. Sarah says I'm being ridiculous and that normal people don't prioritize animals over human relationships. She claims that her friends all think it's weird how attached I am to Max and that I need to grow up and make adult decisions. She's been giving me the silent treatment for 3 days now, and yesterday she texted saying, "I have until the end of the week to decide what matters more to me." I love Sarah, I really do. She's smart, funny, beautiful, and we have great chemistry together. But the thought of looking into Max's trusting eyes and then just abandoning him to a shelter or some stranger feels like the ultimate betrayal. He chose to love me unconditionally, and I promised him when I adopted him that I'd always take care of him. My friends are split on this. Some say relationships require compromise, and maybe I should consider rehoming Max if Sarah is the one I want to marry. Others say that anyone who would make me choose between them and my dog isn't someone worth keeping around. My sister pointed out that this probably isn't really about Max at all, but about control and seeing how much Sarah can get me to sacrifice for her. I keep going back and forth between feeling guilty for potentially losing a good relationship over a dog and feeling disgusted that someone who claims to love me would ask me to give up something so important to me. The deadline is tomorrow and I still don't know what to do. Part of me thinks maybe I should just end things with Sarah, because anyone who can't accept that Max is part of my life isn't the right person for me. But another part of me wonders if I'm being stubborn, and if real love means making sacrifices, even painful ones. That story's over. Honestly, this one breaks my heart because Max sounds like the perfect companion, and Sarah sounds like she's testing boundaries to see how much control she can have. When someone makes you choose between them and something you love that brings no harm to anyone, that's a massive red flag. The fact that she's been escalating complaints and now demanding he abandon a loyal friend who's been there through tough times shows exactly who she really is. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, and Sarah is basically holding up a giant sign that says she's not the one. Moving right into our next story, this one involves someone who's starting to feel like a personal ATM in their relationship. My boyfriend never pays for dates. I'm 26 and I've been dating Jake for about 5 months now. When we first started seeing each other, I was really excited because he seemed like such a catch. He's charming, good looking, has a decent job at a marketing firm, and we have great conversations. But there's one thing that's been bothering me more and more as our relationship has progressed, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm being taken advantage of. Jake has never, not once, paid for a date, not even a coffee. When we went on our first official date to a nice restaurant, I offered to split the bill because I believe in being independent and not expecting men to always pay. Jake immediately accepted my offer without even a token protest. I thought maybe he was just being respectful of modern dating norms, so I didn't think much of it. But then it happened again on our second date, and our third, and every single date since then. I've paid for dinners, movies, concerts, mini-golf, coffee dates, drinks, even gas when we've taken road trips together. Jake never even reaches for his wallet anymore. He just sits there expectantly while I handle the check, like it's the most natural thing in the world. The weird part is, Jake definitely has money. He drives a nice car, wears expensive clothes, and is always talking about the new gadgets he's buying or the trips he's planning with his friends. He'll show me photos of expensive dinners he's had with his buddies, or talk about splitting the cost of a weekend cabin rental with his college friends. So I know he's not broke. He just apparently thinks I should pay for everything when we're together. I've started suggesting cheaper activities to see if that would make a difference, but it doesn't matter if it's a $5 coffee or a $50 dinner. Jake never offers to pay for anything. He'll even order the most expensive items on the menu while I'm calculating how much this is going to set me back. Last week we went to see a movie, and Jake ordered a large popcorn, candy, and a drink at the concession stand. The total came to almost $30 on top of the movie tickets I'd already bought. He just stood there smiling while I paid for everything, then ate most of the snacks himself. When I mentioned that movie theatre food was getting really expensive, he just shrugged and said, "Yeah, but it's worth it for the experience." I'm starting to feel like Jake sees me as his personal entertainment fund. He's always suggesting activities and restaurants, getting excited about plans, but never once considers who's going to pay for any of it. It's like the concept of him spending money on our relationship has never even crossed his mind. I've hinted about it a few times, saying things like, "These dates are getting expensive," or "I need to budget better for going out so much." But Jake either doesn't pick up on the hints or chooses to ignore them. My friends think I should just directly ask him to start paying for some of our dates, but I feel awkward bringing up money in what's supposed to be a romantic relationship. At the same time, I'm starting to resent Jake for what feels like him taking advantage of my generosity. I've calculated that I've spent over $800 on dates in the past 5 months, while Jake has contributed exactly zero. That money could have gone toward a vacation for myself or paying down my student loans. The thing that really bothers me is that Jake never seems grateful for the fact that I pay for everything. He doesn't thank me or acknowledge that I'm covering the costs. He just takes it for granted, like it's my job to fund our relationship. I'm starting to wonder if Jake is actually interested in me as a person, or if he just sees me as a convenient way to get free entertainment and meals. When I really think about it, would he even want to spend time with me if he had to pay his own way? I don't want to be in a relationship where I feel used, but I also don't want to end things over money if there's a chance this is just a misunderstanding. Maybe Jake thinks I prefer to pay because I offered on our first date. Maybe he's just oblivious to how much money I've been spending. But 5 months seems like a long time to be oblivious about something like this. That story is over. This is such a frustrating situation because Jake is clearly taking advantage of Jenna's generosity and treating her like his personal sponsor. 5 months of never even offering to pay is beyond clueless. It's calculated. The fact that he spends money freely with friends but expects her to cover everything shows he knows exactly what he's doing. Jenna deserves someone who sees her as a partner, not a meal ticket. The lack of gratitude or acknowledgement makes this even worse because it shows he feels entitled to her money. Let's dive into our next story, which involves the kind of discovery that makes your stomach drop and your mind race with possibilities. My husband still texts his ex. I found something on my husband's phone last night that I can't stop thinking about, and I don't know if I'm overreacting or if I should be worried. My husband David and I have been married for 4 years, together for 7 total. We have what I thought was a solid, trusting relationship. We don't go through each other's phones or anything like that, because we've never had reason not to trust each other. Last night, David was in the shower, and his phone was charging on his nightstand when it lit up with a text notification. I wasn't trying to snoop, but the message preview was visible on the lock screen, and I could see it was from someone named M with a heart emoji. The message said, "Thinking about you tonight, hope you're doing well." Twice up, my heart immediately started racing because I knew David's ex-girlfriend's name was Emma, and they dated for 3 years before we got together. I had never heard him mention staying in contact with her, and we definitely never talked about them still texting each other. I tried to convince myself it was probably just a friendly message, maybe a birthday wish or something innocent, but something about the wording and the late timing made me feel uneasy. I couldn't concentrate on anything for the rest of the evening. I kept looking at David and wondering what their relationship was really like now, and why he'd never mentioned that they still talked. When David came out of the shower, I saw him check his phone and quickly type something back, but he didn't say anything to me about getting a message or who it was from. The next morning I couldn't stop myself from asking casual questions about his day and whether he'd heard from anyone interesting lately. David said no, just the usual work stuff and messages from his family. He didn't mention Emma at all, which made me feel even more suspicious about why he was hiding their communication from me. I've been going crazy all day trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wants to just ask him directly about the text, but I'm afraid he'll be angry that I saw his private message, even though it was completely accidental. Another part of me wants to see if I can figure out more about their relationship before I say anything, but that would require actually snooping through his phone, which feels like a violation of trust. The rational part of my brain knows that people can be friends with their exes, and that one text message doesn't necessarily mean anything is going on. But the emotional part of me is spiraling with thoughts about whether David still has feelings for Emma, and whether he's been lying to me about their relationship this whole time. I keep replaying the message in my head and analysing every word. Why was she thinking about him specifically last night? Why did she feel the need to reach out and tell him that? And why did David respond right away but not mention it to me? I've never been the jealous type, and I've always trusted David completely, but this whole situation is making me question everything. I don't know if I'm being paranoid or if my instincts are trying to tell me something important. The worst part is that I can't focus on anything else. I keep imagining scenarios where David has been having an emotional affair with Emma, or where he's been lying about his feelings for her, or where they've been planning to get back together. I know I'm probably overthinking this, but I also can't just pretend I never saw that message. I need to know what's really going on between them, but I don't know how to bring it up without sounding accusatory or crazy. David and I have always been able to talk about anything, but this feels different because it involves another woman and potential dishonesty. I'm scared that if I confront him about it, he'll either lie to me or get defensive and turn it around on me for looking at his phone. But I'm also scared that if I don't say anything, I'll drive myself insane wondering what's really happening behind my back. That story is over. This is such a tough situation because while seeing private messages accidentally happens, the secrecy around Emma is what makes this concerning. The fact that David responded immediately, but didn't mention it, combined with never discussing that he still talks to his ex, creates natural suspicion. Trust is built on transparency, and hiding ongoing contact with an ex while married isn't normal. She deserves to know the truth about their communication, and any reasonable husband would understand why this would be upsetting. Sometimes your gut instincts are trying to protect you from something you don't want to see. Our next story comes from someone whose marriage seems to be shifting in a direction that has him completely panicked. My wife says she wants space. I don't know where to start with this because my whole world feels like it's falling apart. My wife Lisa and I have been married for 9 years, and until last month I thought we were happy. We have 2 kids together, ages 6 and 4, and we've built what I believed was a good life. Lisa works part-time as a nurse. I work in construction, and we've always been a team when it comes to raising our kids and managing our household. Sure, we've had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that ever made me think our marriage was in trouble. 3 weeks ago, Lisa sat me down after the kids went to bed and told me she needed to talk about something serious. She said she'd been doing a lot of thinking lately and felt like she'd lost herself somewhere along the way. She talked about how she got married young, had kids right and individual. She said she loved me in the away and never really got to figure out who she was as kids, but she needed some space to rediscover herself and figure out what she wanted from her, what that meant exactly. And she said, life. I was completely blindsided. I wanted to try a trial separation. Not divorce, she insisted, just some time apart to think and work on herself. She suggested that I stay in our house with the kids while she moved in with her sister, temporarily. She said she still wanted to see the kids regularly, and that this wasn't about not loving our family, but about needing to breathe and gain some perspective. I tried to ask what had brought this on so suddenly, but Lisa was vague about it. He mentioned feeling suffocated and like she'd been living her life for everyone else but herself. She said she'd been unhappy for a while, but hadn't known how to express it without hurting me. She kept emphasizing that this wasn't necessarily permanent, and that space might actually help our marriage in the long run. I begged her to try couples counselling instead of separating, but she said she needed to work on herself individually before she could work on us as a couple. She'd already made up her mind and had been planning this conversation for weeks. She even had bags packed and ready to go. The hardest part was explaining to our kids why Mommy was going to stay at Aunt Jenny's house for a while. Lisa told them it was temporary and that Mommy and Daddy just needed some time to figure these things out, but our 6-year-old kept asking if we were getting divorced. I didn't know what to tell him because, honestly, I don't know the answer to that question myself. It's been 3 weeks now, and Lisa has been staying at her sister's place across town. She comes by every few days to see the kids and help with bedtime routines, but things between us are awkward and stilted. We're polite to each other, but there's this distance that never used to be there. When I try to talk to her about our marriage or ask how she's feeling, she gives me generic answers about still needing time and space. I've been trying to be supportive and not pressure her, but inside I'm dying. I miss my wife. I miss our family being together. I miss our normal routines and inside jokes and just having her there. And I wake up in the morning. The kids miss her too, and it breaks my heart when they ask when she's coming home, and I don't have an answer for them. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out what went wrong and what I could have done differently. I've always tried to be a good husband and father. I help with housework. I'm involved with the kids' activities. I tell Lisa I love her every day. Maybe I've been taking our relationship for granted, or maybe I haven't been paying enough attention to her needs, but I honestly thought we were solid. My friends and family are trying to be supportive, but most of them seem to think that when a woman asks for space, it's usually code for wanting a divorce. They keep telling me to prepare for the worst and maybe start thinking about custody, arguments and dividing assets, but I'm not ready to give up on my marriage. I love Lisa more than anything, and I can't imagine my life without her. The waiting and not knowing is torture. I don't know if I should be giving her the space she asked for, or fighting harder for our relationship. I don't know if I should be preparing for her to come back or preparing for her to ask for a divorce. Every day feels like I'm walking on eggshells, afraid that the wrong move will push her further away, but also afraid that doing nothing will let our marriage slip away completely. That story is over. The phrase "I need space in a marriage" is absolutely terrifying because it often means someone has already emotionally checked out but isn't ready to admit it yet. The fact that Lisa had bags packed and a plan before even having the conversation suggests this wasn't a spontaneous decision, but something she'd been contemplating for a while. While everyone deserves to find themselves, doing it by breaking up the family unit puts tremendous pressure on the kids and spouse, dragging out the inevitable. The uncertainty he's living in is cruel, and he deserves more clarity about whether she's working toward reconciliation or just delaying the end. Let's move into our next story, which deals with someone whose partner seems determined to isolate them from their support system. My boyfriend doesn't like my friends. I'm 24, and I've been dating Ryan for about 10 months now. Things between us are generally good, but there's one issue that's been causing increasing tension, and I'm starting to feel like I'm being forced to choose between my relationship and my friendships. I have a close group of 4 girlfriends that I've known since college. We all live in the same city and try to get together at least once a week, whether it's for dinner, drinks, or just hanging out at someone's apartment. These girls have been my support system through everything: job changes, family drama, previous breakups, you name it. They're like sisters to me, and our friendship group is one of the most important things in my life. When Ryan and I first started dating, he seemed fine with my friends. He'd met them a few times at group gatherings and parties, and while he wasn't particularly social with them, he was polite enough. But over the past few months, his attitude has completely shifted, and now he has something negative to say about every single one of them. According to Ryan, Jessica is too loud and attention-seeking. Amanda drinks too much and is a bad influence. Chloe is shallow and materialistic because she likes fashion and makeup. And Mia is dramatic and always stirring up problems. He's basically found fault with each of their personalities and decided they're all toxic influences on my life. The complaints started small. Ryan would make little comments after we'd hang out with my friends, saying things like, "Did you notice how much Jessica was talking tonight? I saw Amanda seemed pretty drunk again." I brushed it off at first because I figured maybe he was just making observations, and not everyone clicks with every personality type. But the comments have gotten more frequent and more pointed. Now Ryan actively discourages me from spending time with them. Last week, when I told Ryan I was going to dinner with the didn't understand why I needed to hang out with people who bring out girls for Amanda's birthday, he got visibly annoyed and said he the worst in me. When I asked him what he meant by that, he said I act differently around them. Louder, more reckless, less mature. He claims that when I'm with my friends, I drink more than usual and make poor decisions, and that I'm becoming someone he doesn't recognise. I was honestly shocked by this assessment because I don't feel like I act any differently with my friends than I do normally. Sure, we have fun and sometimes we'll have a few drinks with dinner, but we're not out getting wasted or causing chaos everywhere we go. We're just normal women in our 20s enjoying each other's company. The situation came to a head 2 nights ago when I got home from a girls' night around 11 p.m. Ryan was waiting up for me, and he immediately started interrogating me about where we'd been, what we'd talked about, and why I was getting home so late. I felt like I was being treated like a teenager sneaking in past curfew instead of an adult who had just been out for dinner and drinks with friends. When I pointed out that 11 wasn't particularly late, and that I was a grown woman capable of making my own decisions about my social life, Ryan gave me this whole speech about how he was only worried about me. He went on about how he cares for me, and doesn't want to see me influenced by people who don't have my best interests at heart. He claimed my friends were jealous of our relationship, and were probably trying to sabotage it by encouraging me to go out without him, and putting ideas in my head about independence and not needing a boyfriend. He even said, word for word, "They're turning you against me." It felt incredibly manipulative. I tried to explain that my friends have never said anything negative about Ryan. In fact, they're happy I'm in a relationship. But Ryan insisted that I was naive and couldn't see how toxic they really were. He told me that if I really loved him and wanted our relationship to work, I needed to start distancing myself from people who were bad influences. He suggested I should focus more energy on building our relationship and spending quality time with him instead of seeing my friends so often. The thing is, I don't want to choose between my boyfriend and my friends. I love Ryan, but I also love my girlfriends, and they've been in my life far longer than he has. These women have supported me through everything, and the idea of cutting them off because my boyfriend doesn't like them feels wrong. It's left me wondering if Ryan is truly concerned about their influence on me, or if he just wants more control over my time and attention. My friends have already started noticing that I've been declining more invitations lately, and when I do hang out with them, I feel guilty the entire time because I know Ryan disapproves. It's like I can't even enjoy myself because I'm already anticipating the argument I'll have with him when I get home. This whole situation is making me feel isolated and torn between two important parts of my life. I keep going back and forth between thinking maybe Ryan has a point about some of my friends and realizing this is textbook controlling behavior disguised as concern. He's systematically targeting each friend with criticisms, trying to convince me I'm different and worse when I'm with them, and then interrogating me when I get home. The ultimatum about choosing between him and my lifelong friendships is a major red flag. True partners don't isolate you from your support system. They encourage it. That story is over. Now, speaking of relationships that seem to exist more in the digital world than in reality, our next story comes from someone whose girlfriend apparently cares more about her Instagram followers than her actual boyfriend. My girlfriend is obsessed with Instagram. I'm 27 and I've been dating Tasha for about 6 months. She's beautiful, funny, and we have great chemistry, but there's something about her relationship with social media that's starting to drive me insane. Tasha has about 12,000 followers on Instagram. Not huge influencer numbers, but enough to get decent engagement on her posts. What started out as something I found cute about her has turned into an obsession that's affecting every aspect of our relationship. Tasha spends at least 3 hours a day on Instagram, not just scrolling through her feed, but planning content, taking photos, editing them, writing captions, responding to comments, and checking her analytics. She even has spreadsheets tracking posting times and engagement rates. She's turned her entire life into content for her followers, and by extension, she's turned our relationship into content too. Every single thing we do together has to be photographed for Instagram. We can't go to a restaurant without Tasha spending 20 minutes getting the perfect shot of her cold. We can't go for food before it gets a hike without stopping every few minutes so she can pose against different backgrounds. We went to the beach last weekend, and instead of relaxing and enjoying the ocean, Tasha spent 2 hours having me take hundreds of photos of her in different poses and outfits. She brought 4 different swimsuits and a ring light to make sure the lighting was perfect. The worst part is that nothing feels genuine anymore. Tasha will suggest activities not because she actually wants to do them, but because they'll make good Instagram content. She wanted to go apple picking not because she likes apples or fall activities, but because she saw other influencers getting good engagement from orchard photos. She signed us up for a pottery class not because she's interested in art, but because she thought the aesthetic would fit her feed. Even our intimate moments get interrupted by Instagram. We'll be having a nice dinner at home, and Tasha will suddenly remember that she hasn't posted anything that day. So she'll spend the next hour staging photos of herself, looking candid and natural. She'll change outfits 3 times to find the right look, rearrange our living room for better lighting, and make me take dozens of shots until she gets one she likes. The constant photo taking is exhausting. I feel like I've become her unpaid photographer instead of her boyfriend. Tasha will hand me her phone multiple times during any outing and direct me on exactly how she wants the photos taken. She'll critique my camera work and make me retake shots if they're not perfect. I've started to dread going places with her because I know I'll spend the entire time behind a camera instead of actually experiencing whatever we're doing. What really bothers me is how the Instagram persona has started to take over her real personality. Tasha is constantly performing, even when it's just the two of us. She'll strike poses while we're walking down the street or make exaggerated facial expressions during conversations because she's thinking about how it would look in a photo. Sometimes I feel like actual person. The validation-seeking behaviour is getting more intense too. Tasha's mood is directly tied to how her posts perform. If a photo doesn't get as many likes as she expected, she'll be upset for hours, analysing what went wrong and planning how to do better next time. She'll even delete posts that don't hit certain engagement benchmarks and repost them at different times to try to get more traction. She's also started buying followers and likes to boost her numbers, which feels dishonest to me. When I mentioned that purchased engagement wasn't real and didn't reflect genuine interest in her content, she got defensive. She said I didn't understand how social media marketing worked and that building an Instagram following was like building a business. According to her, sometimes you have to invest money to see returns. The breaking point came last week at my grandmother's 90th birthday party. It was a small, intimate family gathering with maybe 15 people, mostly elderly relatives. Instead of participating in conversations or helping with the celebration, Tasha spent the entire time taking selfies and photos of her outfit. She even asked my great-aunt to move out of the way so she could get a better background for her photos. At one point, she posted a story during dinner captioned, "Sunday family vibes," like she was fully engaged with us, when in reality, she hadn't spoken to anyone all evening. Later, my grandmother asked my mum who the girl on her phone all night was, and my mum had to explain she was my girlfriend. I was mortified that Tasha had made such a poor impression on my family by prioritising Instagram over being present at an important family event. When I tried to talk to Tasha about her behaviour at the party, she said I was being unsupportive of her goals and that I didn't understand how much work went into maintaining her online presence. She told me I should be proud she was building something for herself. Then she accused me of being jealous of the attention she gets from her followers, saying most boyfriends would be supportive instead of critical. I tried to explain that it wasn't about jealousy or not being supportive of her ambitions. It was about feeling like our relationship was being sacrificed for the sake of content creation. I told her I missed feeling like I had her full attention and that everything we did together now felt staged and artificial. Tasha dismissed my concerns, saying I was being dramatic and that plenty of couples navigate social media successfully. I love Tasha, but I'm starting to feel like I'm competing with 12,000 strangers for her attention, and I'm losing. I don't know if this is just a phase she'll grow out of, or if this is simply who she is now. I'm torn between wanting to be supportive of her goals and protecting my own sanity in a relationship that feels more performative than real. That story is over. Living your entire life for the gram is exhausting for everyone involved, and turning your boyfriend into an unpaid photographer while ignoring his family at important events is just selfish. Tasha has completely lost sight of what actually matters in favour of validation from strangers online. The fact that she can't even be present at a 90-year-old's birthday party without staging content shows how deep this obsession goes. Real relationships require real presence, not performative moments for social media. Moving into our next story, we have someone dealing, "My fiancé wants a prenup. I'm 29, and what should have been a practical conversation has turned into a relationship crisis. I proposed to my girlfriend Rachel 6 months ago after we'd been together for 3 years. She said yes, and we've been planning our wedding for next spring. Everything was going smoothly until last week when Rachel brought up the topic of a prenuptial agreement, and now I don't know what to think about our entire relationship. Rachel is a successful attorney at a corporate law firm, and she makes significantly more money than I do. I work as a high school teacher, which I love, but the salary isn't exactly impressive compared to her six-figure income. Rachel owns her own condo, has substantial savings, and has been contributing to retirement accounts since she was 22. I rent an apartment, still have some student loan debt, and am just starting to build up my savings now that I'm approaching 30. When Rachel first mentioned the prenup, she presented it as a practical, logical decision that would protect both of us in the unlikely event that our marriage didn't work out. She said it wasn't about not trusting me or expecting our marriage to fail, but about being responsible adults who plan for all possibilities. She compared it to having insurance. You hope you never need it, but you're glad you have it if something goes wrong. I was honestly shocked she even brought it up. In my mind, marriage is supposed to be about joining your lives completely, sharing everything, and committing to work through problems together. The idea of planning for divorce before we even get married feels like starting our marriage with one foot out the door. It makes me feel like Rachel doesn't have complete faith in our relationship or in my character as a person. When I expressed my concerns, Rachel tried to reassure me that the prenup wasn't a reflection of her feelings about me or our relationship. She explained that she'd seen too many divorces in her legal career that turned nasty when it came to dividing assets, and she wanted to avoid that possibility. She said having clear agreements in place ahead of time would actually protect our relationship by removing financial stress if we ever hit rough patches. But I can't help feeling insulted by the whole thing. It feels like Rachel is basically saying she doesn't trust me not to go after her money if we get divorced. I've never shown any interest in her wealth beyond being happy that she's successful at something she loves. I don't expect her to support me financially. I don't ask her to pay for things I can't afford. And I've never made her feel like I'm with her for her money. The prenup Rachel wants is pretty comprehensive. It would keep all of her premarital assets separate, including her condo and investment accounts. It would also specify that if we divorce, I wouldn't have any claim to her retirement savings or her law practice. Any increase in the value of her assets during our marriage would remain hers alone. Essentially, it would ensure that if we split up, I would leave the marriage with exactly what I brought into it, regardless of how long we were together or what I might have contributed to our household. What really stings is that Rachel makes it sound like I should be grateful for the prenup, because it protects me too. She says it ensures that my student loan debt remains my responsibility alone, and that she couldn't come after my teacher's pension if we divorced. But that feels like a joke, since my teacher's pension and minimal assets are hardly worth protecting compared to her substantial wealth. I've tried to talk to Rachel about maybe finding a middle ground, like a prenup that would protect her major assets, but still recognise that marriage is supposed to be a partnership where we build a life together. But she's pretty firm about wanting comprehensive protection. She says that if we're going to do a prenup at all, it should be thorough, and half measures don't make sense. My friends and family are divided on this. Some people think Rachel is being smart and practical, and that I should sign it if I love her, and have no intention of divorcing her anyway. They point out that prenups are becoming more common, especially when there's a significant income disparity. Others think Rachel's being cold and calculating, and that asking for a prenup shows she doesn't really trust me or believe in our marriage. My mum was particularly hurt when I told her about the prenup. She said it sounded like Rachel was treating our marriage like a business transaction instead of a love story. My dad, on the other hand, said that maybe Rachel has seen enough ugly divorces in her work that she's just trying to be cautious, and that it doesn't necessarily reflect her feelings about me. The whole situation has created this weird tension between us, where we're supposed to be planning our wedding and dreaming about our future together, but instead, we're discussing what happens when our marriage fails. Every conversation about the prenup makes me feel more insecure about our relationship, and more uncertain about whether Rachel really sees us as a team. Rachel has suggested that we each get our own lawyers to review the prenup terms, which would cost money I don't really have. She offered to pay for my attorney, but that makes me feel even worse, like she's buying my compliance with her plan. The whole thing has turned what should be an exciting time in our lives into something that feels adversarial and transactional. I keep going back and forth between thinking that maybe Rachel is right and I'm being overly emotional about something that's just practical planning, and feeling like if she really loved and trusted me, she wouldn't need legal protection from me. I don't know if I should sign the prenup to prove that I'm not after her money, or refuse to sign it to prove that I believe in our marriage. That story is over. This is such a painful situation because both perspectives make sense, but the emotional disconnect is real. Rachel's approaching this from a logical, legal standpoint, while Mark feels like she's planning their divorce before their wedding. The income disparity makes this extra complicated because it's hard not to feel like the lower earning partner is being treated as a potential threat. Prenups can be smart, but they definitely require both people to be on the same page about why they're necessary. Let's move into our next story, which involves someone who feels completely invisible in their own marriage. My husband works all the time. I'm 31 and I've been married to Kevin for 6 years. We have a 2-year-old daughter together, and on paper, our life looks pretty good. Kevin has a successful career in finance. We own a nice house in a good neighborhood, and we're financially stable, but I feel more alone in my marriage than I ever did when I was single, and I don't know how much longer I can take feeling invisible in my own home. Kevin leaves for work every morning at 6:30 and rarely gets home before 8 p.m. Most nights, he doesn't even eat the dinner I've prepared because he's already grabbed something at the office or had a client dinner. On weekends, he's either catching up on work from home or dealing with calls and emails that apparently can't wait until Monday. We haven't had a real conversation that lasted longer than 5 minutes in weeks. I understand that Kevin works hard to provide for our family, and I appreciate the financial security his job gives us. But I feel like I'm raising our daughter as a single parent while being married to someone who treats home like a hotel he occasionally sleeps at. When I try to talk to Kevin about spending more time together as a family, he says he's doing this for us, and that once he makes partner, things will slow down. He's been saying that for 3 years now. The loneliness is crushing. I'll spend entire days with just our toddler for company, and by the time Kevin gets home, I'm desperate for adult conversation. But he's usually exhausted and stressed from work, so he just wants to zone out in front of the TV or check more emails. I've started feeling like a burden when I try to talk to him about my day or ask him to help with bedtime routines. Our daughter barely knows her father. She gets excited when she hears the garage door open, but by the time she runs to greet him, Kevin is usually already buried in his laptop or talking on the phone. She's stopped asking him to read bedtime stories because he's always too busy or too tired. It breaks my heart to see her trying to get his attention and being dismissed because Daddy has work to do. I've tried suggesting date nights or family activities, but Kevin always has an excuse. He missed our daughter's first steps because he was in a meeting that ran late. He missed her second birthday party because he had to fly out for a client emergency. I've stopped telling him about important moments because I know he won't be available anyway. The worst part is that Kevin doesn't seem to realise how disconnected we've become. When I brought up my concerns last month, he seemed genuinely surprised that I was unhappy. He said he thought I understood that this was a demanding time in his career and that I was being supportive. He reminded me of all the nice things his salary allows us to have, as if money could replace his presence in our lives. I love Kevin, but I'm starting to feel like I'm married to a stranger who pays the bills. I miss feeling like we're partners, like we're building a life together, instead of just existing in the same house. I miss having someone to talk to at the end of the day, someone who cares about the little details of my life and our daughter's milestones. I miss feeling like I matter to my own husband. I've considered going back to work just to have something for myself and to meet other adults, But Kevin says it doesn't make financial sense since childcare would eat up most of what I'd earn. He says my job is taking care of our home and daughter, and that should be fulfilling enough. But I'm starting to feel like I've disappeared entirely, like I only exist to make his life more convenient. My friends with working husbands don't seem to have this problem. Their partners find ways to balance career and family, to be present even when they're busy. I'm starting to wonder if Kevin is using work as an excuse to avoid intimacy and responsibility, or if he's genuinely just that consumed by his career that he's forgotten he has a family. I don't want to give Kevin an ultimatum, but I also can't keep living like this. I need a partner, not just a paycheck. Our daughter needs a father who's actually present in her life, not just someone who appears occasionally between business calls. I feel like we're slowly becoming strangers, and I don't know how to bridge the gap when Kevin doesn't even acknowledge that there is one. That story is over. The classic workaholic husband who thinks providing money is the same as providing love and presence. Kevin is missing his daughter's entire childhood and his wife's emotional needs while hiding behind career ambitions. Money can't buy back missed bedtime stories or replace actual partnership. This marriage is dying from neglect, and Kevin doesn't even see it happening. Our next story comes from someone who's been waiting over a year for what should be a natural relationship milestone. My boyfriend won't introduce me to his parents. I'm 28, and I've been dating Alex for 14 months now. We spend almost every weekend together. We've talked about moving in together, and he's met my entire family multiple times. But I still haven't met his parents, and whenever I bring it up, Alex gets defensive and changes the subject. It's starting to make me feel like he's embarrassed of me, or like our relationship isn't as serious as I thought it was. Alex talks about his parents fairly regularly, so it's not like they're estranged or anything. He'll mention conversations he's had with his mum, or things his dad said about work. He goes to their house for dinner, at least once a month, and he spends most holidays with them. From what I can tell, they have a close relationship, which makes it even more confusing why he won't introduce me. When I asked Alex directly why I haven't met his parents yet, he said they're very traditional, and he wants to wait until he's sure we're serious before introducing me. But 14 months feels pretty serious to me, especially since we've been talking about taking the next steps in our relationship. When I pointed this out, Alex said his parents have strong opinions about his dating life, and he doesn't want to deal with their input right now. The situation became more frustrating when Alex's sister visited from out of state last month. I was excited to finally meet someone from his family, but Alex made plans to see her alone. When I asked if I could join them for dinner or drinks, Alex said it would be easier if it was just the two of them catching up. I felt completely excluded from what seemed like a family reunion that I should have been part of as his girlfriend. I've started noticing other ways Alex keeps me separate from his family life. When his parents call while we're together, he'll step into another room to talk to them. He's never suggested that I send holiday cards with him or contribute to family gifts. When his mum was in the hospital for minor surgery, Alex visited her every day, but never mentioned that I'd offered to come along or help in any way. My friends think Alex is either ashamed of me or not as committed to our relationship as he claims to be. They point out that most people introduce their partners to their parents within the first few months of dating, not after more than a year. Some of them think Alex might even be hiding something about his family situation or about other relationships. I've tried to be patient and understanding because I know some families are complicated and some parents can be judgmental. But I'm starting to feel like Alex is treating me like a casual girlfriend instead of someone he's building a future with. How can we move in together when he won't even acknowledge my existence to his parents? The weirdest part is that Alex seems comfortable with every other aspect of our relationship. He talks about future plans. He's introduced me to his friends and co-workers, and he acts like a committed boyfriend in every way except when it comes to his family. It's like there's this whole part of his life that I am not allowed to be part of, and I don't understand why. When I told Alex that his reluctance to introduce me was making me question our relationship. He said I was being dramatic and impatient. He promised that he would arrange a meeting soon, but that was 3 months ago, and nothing has happened. Every time I bring it up now, Alex says he's waiting for the right opportunity, or that his parents have been too busy. I'm starting to feel like Alex is stringing me along, or keeping me as a backup option, while he figures out what he really wants. If he was proud of our relationship and saw a future with me, wouldn't he want his parents to know about me? The longer this goes on, the more it feels like Alex is embarrassed by me, or like he's not ready to commit to anything serious despite what he says. That story is over. 14 months without meeting the parents is a massive red flag that screams commitment issues or hidden shame. Either Alex is embarrassed of her, not over an ex, or still keeping his options open with someone else. His family would approve of more. No one who's truly serious about their partner keeps them secret from family for over a year. She's basically his placeholder girlfriend at this point. Let's move into our next story, which deals with someone whose living situation has become an uncomfortable daily reminder of their partner's past. My girlfriend still has photos of her ex. I moved in with my girlfriend Sarah 3 months ago, and while I love living together, there's something in her apartment that makes me uncomfortable every single day. Sarah has framed photos of herself with her ex-boyfriend displayed throughout the apartment, and she refuses to take them down, even though we're now sharing the space. I'm not talking about group photos where her ex happens to be in the background, or casual pictures mixed in with other memories. These are romantic couple photos, prominently displayed on bookshelves, the mantel, and even on her bedside table. There's a particularly intimate photo of them kissing at sunset that sits right in our living room where I see it every time I watch TV. When I first moved in, I assumed Sarah would naturally put these photos away since we were now living together as a couple. I figured she just hadn't thought about how awkward it would be for me to see romantic pictures of her with another man in our shared home. But when I gently brought it up, Sarah said those photos represented important memories from her life, and she didn't want to erase them just because we were living together. I tried to explain that I wasn't asking her to throw the photos away or pretend her past relationships never happened. I just thought it would be more appropriate to store them somewhere private instead of displaying them like decorations in our home. Sarah said I was being insecure and controlling, and that mature adults should be comfortable with their partner's dating history. The situation has created this weird tension where I feel like I'm competing with her ex for space in my own home. I wake up every morning and see a photo of Sarah cuddling with another man on her nightstand. I eat breakfast looking at pictures of her romantic vacation with her ex on the kitchen counter. It's impossible to feel settled or comfortable when I'm constantly being reminded of her previous relationship. What makes it even more awkward is that Sarah and her ex dated for 4 years and only broke up 8 months before she and I got together. The photos show them looking very happy and in love, which makes me wonder if Sarah is keeping them displayed because she's not over the relationship. When I asked her about this, she said I was being paranoid and that she just appreciates good photography and meaningful moments. I've tried to compromise by suggesting we create new photos together to replace some of the ones with her ex, but Sarah says that's missing the point. She claims that asking her to take down the photos is asking her to deny part of her history, and that I should work on my own insecurity instead of trying to control her decorating choices. My friends think Sarah is being completely unreasonable, and that most people would naturally put away romantic photos with exes when starting a new, serious relationship. They say it's basic respect for your current partner's feelings. But Sarah's friends seem to support her position that I'm being jealous and possessive about something that shouldn't matter. The whole situation is making me question whether Sarah is really ready for a committed relationship with me, or if she's still emotionally attached to her ex. I can't understand why she would choose to keep romantic photos displayed when she knows they make me uncomfortable, especially since we're supposed to be building a life together. I love Sarah and I want our living situation to work, but I feel like I'm sharing our home with a ghost from her past. Every room has reminders of her previous relationship, and it's making it impossible for me to feel like this space belongs to both of us. I don't know if I should keep pushing the issue, or if I should just accept that Sarah values her photo displays more than my comfort in our shared home. That story is over. Having romantic photos of your ex displayed in the home you share with your new partner is completely inappropriate and honestly cruel. Sarah is either deliberately trying to make him feel insecure, or she's genuinely not over her ex and keeping the photos as shrine to what she lost. No mature adult keeps couple photos with their ex on the nightstand when they're living with someone new. Our next story comes from someone whose marriage has become a daily battlefield of criticism and nitpicking. My wife criticizes everything I do. I'm 35 and I've been married to Jennifer for 8 years. What started as a loving partnership has turned into a relationship where I feel like I can't do anything right, and Jennifer has something negative to say about almost every aspect of my daily life. I'm starting to feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own home, and I don't know how much more criticism I can take. Jennifer finds fault with everything from how I load the dishwasher to how I breathe when I'm sleeping. If I put the plates facing the wrong direction, she'll sigh dramatically and redo the entire load while explaining the correct way to organize dishes. If I fold laundry, she'll refold everything because my method doesn't meet her standards. If I cook dinner, she'll hover over me, giving instructions and pointing out everything I'm doing wrong. The criticism extends to things that should be completely subjective, like how I dress or how I style my hair. Jennifer will look at my outfit choices and suggest that I change, because what I've chosen doesn't look good or isn't appropriate for wherever we're going. She's bought me clothes that she thinks I should wear instead, and gets annoyed when I don't choose the outfits she's picked out for me. Even my hobbies and interests aren't safe from Jennifer's judgment. I play guitar as a way to relax, but Jennifer complains that I practice too much, too little, or at the wrong times. When I watch sports on weekends, she makes comments about how I'm wasting time that could be spent on more productive activities. If I want to meet up with friends, Jennifer will find reasons why it's inconvenient, or why I should be focusing on household projects instead. The constant negativity has started affecting my self-confidence and my mental health. I second-guess every decision I make, because I know Jennifer will have something critical to say about it. I've stopped suggesting activities or making plans, because I've learned that Jennifer will find problems with whatever I propose. It's easier to just let her make all the decisions than to deal with the criticism that comes with having my own opinions. What's particularly frustrating is that Jennifer doesn't seem to realize how harsh and constant her criticism has become. When I tried to talk to her about how her negativity was affecting our relationship, she said she was just trying to be helpful and that I was being too sensitive. She claims that she's giving me constructive feedback to help me improve, but it doesn't feel constructive when literally everything I do is wrong. Jennifer has started criticizing me in front of other people, which is embarrassing and humiliating. At dinner with friends last week, she corrected the way I was telling a story and then explained to everyone the right way to tell it. When we were at my parents' house, she pointed out that I was sitting incorrectly and adjusted my posture in front of my family. I felt like a child being scolded by a parent instead of an adult being treated with respect by his wife. I've tried changing my behaviour to match Jennifer's preferences, but it seems like no matter what I do, she finds new things to criticise. If I improve in one area, she'll shift her focus to something else that needs correction. It feels like I'm trying to hit a moving target, and the criticism never actually stops no matter how much I adjust my behaviour. The worst part is that Jennifer seems to genuinely believe that her way is the only right way to do things, and that I should be grateful for her guidance. She acts like she's doing me a favour by pointing out my flaws and helping me become a better person, but I don't feel like I'm becoming better. I feel like I'm disappearing under the weight of constant disapproval. I love Jennifer, but I'm starting to feel like she doesn't actually like who I am as a person. If everything about me needs to be corrected or improved, maybe we're just not compatible anymore. I miss feeling accepted and appreciated by my partner, instead of feeling like a project that needs constant work. I don't know if this is something that can be fixed with counselling, or if Jennifer's critical nature is just part of who she is. All I know is that I can't keep living in a marriage where nothing I do is ever good enough, and where I feel like I have to justify every choice I make to someone who's determined to find fault with everything. That story is over. Jennifer has turned marriage into a masterclass in psychological warfare where her husband can never win. This level of constant criticism is emotional abuse disguised as helpfulness, and she's systematically destroying his self-worth while claiming it's for his own good. No one should have to live like they're failing a test every single day in their own home. Moving into our next story, we have someone whose relationship is stuck because they fundamentally disagree about one of life's biggest decisions. My boyfriend doesn't believe in marriage. I'm 30 and I've been with David for almost 4 years. We live together, share finances, and have built what feels like a married life together in every way except one. David is completely opposed to the idea of marriage, and I'm starting to realize that this might be a deal breaker for our otherwise perfect relationship. David's position is that marriage is an outdated institution that was created for property transfer and religious control, and that it has no place in modern relationships. He says that choosing to be with someone every day is more meaningful than signing a legal contract, and that real love doesn't need government validation. He believes that marriage creates artificial pressure, and that couples stay together longer and are happier when they're choosing each other freely instead of being bound by legal obligations. I understand his philosophical objections to marriage, and part of me even agrees with some of his points. But I've always pictured myself getting married someday, and it's important to me for reasons that go beyond just tradition. I want the legal protections that marriage provides, like being able to make medical decisions for each other and having automatic inheritance rights. I want to publicly declare our commitment in front of our families and friends. And honestly, I want to feel like David is committed enough to our relationship to make it official. When I've tried to explain why marriage matters to me, David says I'm being influenced by societal expectations and fairy tale fantasies about weddings. He claims that needing a marriage certificate to feel secure in our relationship shows that I don't trust what we have together. He points out that we already act like a married couple and that a wedding wouldn't change anything about our day-to-day life. The issue has become more pressing lately because several of our friends have gotten engaged, and attending their weddings makes me feel sad about what I'm missing. I find myself getting emotional during ceremonies, not just because I'm happy for our friends, but because I'm mourning the fact that David and I will never have that moment together. When I mentioned this to David, he said I was being overly sentimental about something that's basically an expensive party. I've suggested compromises, like having a commitment ceremony without the legal marriage, but David isn't interested in any kind of formal celebration of our relationship. He says that what we have is already perfect, and that trying to formalize it would actually diminish its meaning. He's convinced that I'll eventually realize that marriage is unnecessary once I let go of childhood fantasies about white dresses and fairy tale endings. The problem is that I don't think my feelings about marriage are just childhood fantasies. I genuinely want the security and recognition that comes with being married, and I want to feel like my partner is willing to make that commitment to me. When David refuses to even consider marriage, it makes me feel like he's keeping one foot out the door, like he wants to maintain the option to leave more easily. My family has started asking when David and I are going to get engaged, especially since we've been together for so long and live like a married couple. It's embarrassing to have to explain that David doesn't believe in marriage while trying to make it sound like that's perfectly reasonable. I can see the concern in my parents' eyes when they realize that David might never commit to me in the way they expected. I love David deeply, and our relationship is strong in so many ways. We communicate well, we support each other's goals, and we've built a wonderful life together. But I'm starting to feel like we want fundamentally different things for our future, and I don't know if love is enough to bridge that gap. I can't force David to want marriage, but I also can't force myself to stop wanting it. I'm torn between accepting that this is who David is and leaving to find someone who shares my vision of commitment. The thought of ending an otherwise great relationship over marriage feels crazy, but the thought of never getting married also feels like giving up something essential to my happiness. I don't know how to resolve this conflict when we both feel strongly about our positions and neither of us wants to compromise our core beliefs. That story is over. 4 years of playing house while David keeps marriage off the table because he's convinced it's meaningless. Sounds like someone who wants all the benefits of commitment without actually committing. She deserves someone who's excited to marry her, not someone who thinks her dreams are fairy tale nonsense. This fundamental incompatibility isn't going away, and she'll resent him if she settles while he'll resent her if she keeps pushing. Our next story involves someone whose special day keeps getting forgotten by the person who should remember it most. My husband forgets our anniversary every year. I'm 28, and I've been married to Tom for 5 years. Every single year, I plan something special for our anniversary, buy gifts, make reservations, and get excited about celebrating another year together. And every single year, Tom acts completely surprised when I mention our anniversary, like it's some random date that just happened to sneak up on him. This year was particularly devastating because it was our 5th anniversary, which felt like a milestone worth celebrating. I booked us a table at the restaurant where we had our first date, bought him a watch he'd mentioned wanting, and even arranged for my sister to watch our daughter so we could have a romantic evening alone. When Tom came home from work that day, I was dressed up and ready to go, and he looked at me like I was crazy. He asked why I was so dressed up, and when I reminded him it was our anniversary, he got that familiar deer-in-headlights expression and started apologising profusively. He said he'd been swamped at work and completely lost track of dates, and that he felt terrible about forgetting again. But here's the thing that really gets to me. Tom never forgets anything work-related. He remembers client meetings scheduled weeks in advance. He remembers his buddies' fantasy football draft dates. He even remembers when his favourite TV shows are premiering. I've tried everything to help him remember. I put our anniversary date in his phone calendar with alerts. I've mentioned it casually in conversation leading up to the date. I've even written it on our kitchen calendar in red ink. But somehow, Tom always manages to forget until I'm standing there ready to celebrate, and he realises he's completely unprepared. The worst part is that Tom always promises he'll do better next year, but then the exact same thing happens. Last month I decided to test something. I stopped mentioning our upcoming anniversary, entirely to see if Tom would remember on his own. I didn't put any hints in his calendar, I didn't bring it up in conversation, and I didn't start planning anything obvious. I wanted to see if our anniversary meant enough to him that he'd remember it without my constant reminders. The day came and went without Tom saying a single word about it. He came home from work, ate dinner, watched TV, and went to bed like it was any other Tuesday. The next morning I asked him if he realised what yesterday had been, and he honestly had no idea. When I told him he'd missed our anniversary completely, he seemed genuinely shocked and kept insisting that our anniversary was in March, not February. We got married on February 14th, Valentine's Day, which you'd think would be impossible to forget. Tom's response was to say that anniversaries aren't that important anyway, and that showing love every day matters more than celebrating arbitrary dates. He said I was being too focused on symbolism instead of appreciating how good he is to me throughout the year. But that's exactly the problem. I don't feel like Tom is particularly good to me throughout the year. I'm the one who plans all our dates, remembers all the important occasions, and puts effort into keeping romance alive in our marriage. When I told my friends about Tom forgetting our anniversary again, they were shocked. Most of their husbands at least try to acknowledge their anniversaries, even if they need reminders, or don't plan elaborate celebrations. Some of my friends' husbands actually take the initiative to plan anniversary surprises or make reservations without being asked. The idea of a husband completely forgetting such an important date year after year seems unthinkable to them. My mum suggested that maybe Tom shows love in different ways and that I shouldn't put so much importance on one specific date. But I don't think wanting your husband to remember your wedding anniversary is asking too much. It's not like I'm demanding expensive gifts or elaborate vacations. I just want him to acknowledge that this date has special meaning and show that our marriage is important enough for him to remember when we got married. The thing that hurts most is feeling like I'm the only one invested in celebrating our relationship. I'm always the one planning special occasions, suggesting date nights, and trying to create romantic moments. Tom seems perfectly content to let me handle all the emotional labour of maintaining our marriage while he coasts along, forgetting important dates and then apologising after the fact. I've started to wonder if Tom's forgetfulness is actually a sign that our marriage isn't as important to him as it is to me. How can you forget the day you promised to spend your life with someone? How can you not feel excited about celebrating another year together? I'm beginning to think that Tom sees our marriage as something that just exists in the background of his life, not something that deserves special attention or celebration. Last week, I told Tom that I wasn't going to plan our next anniversary at all. I said that if it mattered to him, he could take responsibility for remembering and planning something himself. Tom said that was fine and that he'd definitely remember next year. But based on the past 5 years, I have serious doubts about whether he'll follow through on that promise. I love Tom, but I'm tired of feeling like I'm the only one who cares about the milestones in our relationship. I'm tired of being disappointed every year when he forgets, and I'm tired of having to choose between planning everything myself or having nothing happen at all. I want a partner who values our marriage enough to remember when we got married, not someone who treats our anniversary like an inconvenience that occasionally interrupts his regular schedule. That story is over. The fact that Tom can remember fantasy football drafts, but not his own wedding date, shows exactly where his priorities lie. 5 years of this pattern isn't forgetfulness, it's willful neglect of their marriage. She deserves someone who gets excited about celebrating their love, not someone who treats their anniversary like an annoying obligation. The audacity of saying anniversaries don't matter while putting zero effort into the relationship is just breathtaking. Moving right into our next story, this one involves someone whose partner seems to have a very flexible relationship with commitment. My girlfriend keeps cancelling plans. I'm 32 and I've been dating Sophia for about 7 months now. When we first started seeing each other, I was really impressed by how social and busy she seemed. She had an active lifestyle, lots of friends, and always seemed to have interesting things going on. But over the past few months, I've started to realise that Sophia's busy schedule apparently doesn't include making firm plans with me, and I'm beginning to feel like I'm her backup option for when nothing better comes along. Sophia cancels on me constantly, usually with just a few hours' notice. We'll make plans to go to dinner on Friday night, and then Friday afternoon, I'll get a text saying she's not feeling well, or that something unexpected came up with work, or that her friend is having a crisis and needs support. The excuses always sound reasonable in isolation, but when it happens 3 times in 2 weeks, it starts to feel like a pattern. The most frustrating part is that Sophia never suggests alternative plans when she cancels. She'll just say she's sorry and that we'll figure out another time to get together, but then she leaves it up to me to suggest new plans and coordinate our schedules again. I've started to feel like I'm chasing after her attention and constantly trying to find times when she's available and interested in seeing me. Last month, I had planned a whole day together for Sophia's birthday. I made reservations at a brunch place she'd mentioned wanting to try, bought tickets for an art exhibit she'd seen advertised, and even got her a thoughtful gift related to her hobby of pottery. The night before her birthday, Sophia called to say she wasn't up for celebrating and wanted to just have a quiet day at home. She said she'd been feeling overwhelmed with work stress and needed to recharge. I was disappointed but tried to be understanding because everyone deals with stress differently, and not everyone enjoys big birthday celebrations. But then I saw on social media that Sophia had spent her birthday at a wine tasting event with her co-workers, posting photos of herself looking happy and relaxed. When I asked her about it later, she said the wine tasting was just a quick work thing that came up last minute, but the photos showed her there for hours having what looked like a great time. Sophia's cancellation pattern has started affecting my own social life because I'll turn down invitations from friends to keep my schedule open for our plans, only to have her cancel and leave me with nothing to do. I've missed out on concerts, dinner parties and other events because I thought I had firm plans with Sophia, but she treated our plans as tentative suggestions that could be dropped whenever something better came along. When I tried to talk to Sophia about her frequent cancellations, she said that expecting people to stick to plans shows a lack of understanding, was being too rigid, and that life is unpredictable. She complained how busy everyone is, and that I should be more flexible and spontaneous. She said that real relationships require adapting to changing circumstances, and that getting upset about cancelled plans showed I was more concerned with control than with her well-being. But I don't think wanting consistency is the same as wanting control. I understand that emergencies happen and that sometimes people need to change plans. But Sophia cancels so frequently that I've stopped believing her excuses. When someone consistently prioritizes other activities over time with you, it sends a pretty clear message about where you rank in their life. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago when Sophia and I had planned to attend her company holiday party together. She'd asked me to be her date months in advance, and I'd bought a new suit specifically for the event. The day of the party, Sophia texted me, saying she'd decided it would be better if she went alone, because mixing work and personal life felt complicated. She said she hoped I'd understand, and that we could do something special together the following weekend instead. I was furious because this wasn't a casual dinner that could be rescheduled. This was a formal event where I was supposed to meet her colleagues and be introduced as her boyfriend. Cancelling on something like that felt like Sophia was actively avoiding having me be part of her life in any meaningful way. When I confronted her about how hurtful this was, she said I was making her work party about me and that she needed to focus on her professional relationships. My friends think Sophia is either not that interested in me or she's keeping her options open by maintaining flexibility in her schedule. They point out that people make time for what's important to them, and that someone who really wanted to be with me would prioritize our plans instead of constantly cancelling. Some of them think Sophia might even be seeing other people and using me as a backup when her other options fall through. I've started to feel like I'm in a relationship with someone who doesn't actually want to spend time with me. Sophia seems happy enough to text throughout the week and make plans, but when it comes to actually following through on those plans, there's always something more important or more appealing that takes priority. I'm beginning to wonder if I'm just convenient for Sophia when she's bored or lonely, but not important enough to make real commitments to. I don't want to be in a relationship where I'm constantly wondering if my girlfriend will actually show up for things we've planned together. I want to be with someone who's excited to see me and who treats our time together as valuable, not as something that can be easily discarded when better options arise. I'm starting to think that Sophia and I want very different things from this relationship, and that maybe it's time to find someone who actually wants to prioritize spending time with me. That story is over. Sophia is treating Miguel like a placeholder boyfriend who's there when she has nothing better to do. The birthday situation, where she cancelled their plans but went to a work event, shows she's perfectly capable of keeping commitments when she wants to. Someone who consistently cancels isn't busy, they're just not that interested. Miguel deserves to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan when Netflix gets boring. Let's move into our next story, which involves a couple facing one of the most fundamental disagreements possible in a relationship. My partner and I disagree on kids. I'm 29 and I've been with Alex for 3 years. We have an amazing relationship in almost every way. We travel well together, we support each other's careers, and we've built a beautiful life that feels stable and fulfilling. But there's one massive issue that's been lurking in the background of our relationship, and I'm starting to realize it might be insurmountable. I want children someday, and Alex absolutely does not. When we first started dating, the topic of kids came up casually, and Alex mentioned not being particularly interested in having children. I assumed this was the kind of opinion that might change over time as our relationship got more serious and as we both matured. I figured that once Alex saw how great we were together and how stable our life had become, the idea of starting a family would become more appealing. I thought I had time to show Alex how wonderful it could be to build a family together. But as our relationship has progressed, Alex has become more adamant about not wanting children, not less. Alex talks about kids like they're a burden that would destroy our freedom and happiness. Alex says that having children would ruin our ability to travel spontaneously, pursue our hobbies, and focus on our careers. Alex sees parenthood as giving up everything good about adult life in exchange for years of stress, sleep deprivation, and financial strain. I've tried to address Alex's concerns by talking about how we could maintain our identity and interests, even with children. But Alex isn't interested in hearing about compromises or solutions. Alex has made it clear that this isn't about logistics or timing. It's about fundamentally not wanting to be a parent. Alex doesn't want the responsibility, doesn't enjoy being around children, and can't imagine finding fulfillment in raising kids. The issue has become more pressing lately because several of our friends have started having babies, and being around these new families highlights our fundamental disagreement. When I hold our friends' babies or watch them interact with their children, I feel this overwhelming sense of longing and excitement about the possibility of having that experience myself. But Alex looks uncomfortable and eager to leave whenever we're around children for extended periods. Last month, I suggested that we might want to start thinking seriously about our timeline for having kids if we wanted to get married and start a family in the next few years. Alex's response was to remind me that we'd already discussed this and that Alex's position hadn't changed. Alex said that if having children was important to me, I should find someone else who shared that goal, because it wasn't something Alex would ever want. So I was hurt by how casually Alex suggested I should leave if I wanted kids, like our 3-year relationship was something that could be easily discarded if we didn't agree on everything. But I was also forced to confront the reality that Alex wasn't just going through a phase or waiting for the right time. This was a permanent, non-negotiable position that wasn't going to change, no matter how long we stayed together. I've tried to imagine what my life would look like if I stayed with Alex and gave up my dreams of having children. I love Alex deeply, and our relationship brings me joy and fulfillment in so many ways. I can picture us growing old together, traveling the world and building a life focused on our careers and interests. But I can also picture myself at 50, wondering what it would have been like to have children and feeling like I missed out on one of life's most meaningful experiences. On the other hand, I've tried to imagine what my life would look like if I left Alex to find someone who wanted children. The thought of ending such a good relationship over something hypothetical feels crazy, especially when there's no guarantee I'd find someone else I connect with as deeply. I could spend years looking for a partner who wants kids and never find someone I love as much as I love Alex. My friends are divided on what I should do. Some say that wanting children is such a fundamental part of who I am that I'd regret staying with someone who couldn't give me that experience. They point out that resentment would probably build over time if I gave up something so important for a relationship. Others say that good partnerships are rare and that I shouldn't throw away something beautiful and stable for the possibility of something I'm not even sure I'd be good at. My therapist has been helping me explore why having children is important to me, and whether there are other ways I could fulfill that need for nurturing and family connection. But the more I think about it, the more certain I become that I do want to experience pregnancy, childbirth, and raising children with someone I love. It's not just about wanting to nurture or care for someone, it's specifically about wanting to create a family and pass on values and traditions to the next generation. Alex has suggested that we could be the fun aunt and uncle to our friends' children, or that we could volunteer with youth organisations if I wanted to be around kids. But these suggestions feel like consolation prizes compared to the experience of raising my own children. I appreciate that Alex is trying to find compromises, but I don't think there's a middle ground when it comes to having children. You either have them or you don't. I'm running out of time to make this decision because I'm approaching 30 and I don't want to spend another few years in a relationship that might not give me what I ultimately want. If I'm going to leave Alex and look for someone who wants children, I should probably do it sooner rather than later. But the thought of ending our relationship when everything else is so good feels like throwing away something precious for something uncertain. I love Alex, but I'm starting to realise that love might not be enough when two people want completely different futures. I don't know how to choose between the person I love and the life I've always imagined for myself. Every day I don't make a decision feels like I'm getting closer to a future where I'll have to live with regret no matter what I choose. That story is over. This is one of those heartbreaking situations where there's no compromise and both people's feelings are completely valid. Alex isn't wrong for not wanting kids, and Hannah isn't wrong for wanting them, but they're fundamentally incompatible. Staying together would mean one of them sacrificing something essential to their vision of happiness. Sometimes love isn't enough when you want completely different lives, and dragging this out will only make the inevitable decision more painful. Let's go to the next story, and this one hits right at the heart of relationship milestones. My girlfriend doesn't want to move in together. We've been dating for 3 years now, and I'm 28, she's 26. I love her more than anything, and I thought we were on the same page about our future together. We talk about marriage, kids, all the serious stuff, and it always feels natural and right. About 6 months ago, I brought up the idea of moving in together. My lease was ending and hers was too, so it seemed like perfect timing. I was excited about the possibility of waking up next to her every day, sharing meals, building a life together in the same space. I thought she'd be just as enthusiastic as I was. Instead, she got this weird look on her face and said she needed to think about it. That was fine. I didn't want to pressure her, but weeks went by and she kept avoiding the conversation. Finally, I sat her down and asked her directly what she was thinking. She told me that while she loves me and sees a future with us, she's not ready to live together yet. She said she wants to maintain her independence for a few more years, and that moving in together feels like too big a step right now. She emphasised that it wasn't about not loving me enough, but about not being ready to give up her own space. I tried to understand her perspective, but honestly, it stung. We've been together for 3 years. We spend most nights at each other's places anyway. We've met each other's families, we've travelled together, we've talked about marriage. Moving in together felt like the natural next step, not some huge leap. When I pressed her about what specifically was holding her back, she said she valued having her own place to retreat to when she needed space. She said she worried that living together would change our relationship dynamic, and that she wasn't ready for that level of commitment yet. I asked her what timeline she was thinking, and she said maybe in 2 or 3 years she'd feel differently. 2 or 3 years feels like an eternity when you're already feeling ready to take that step. It makes me question whether we're really as serious about each other as I thought. My friends think she's just not that into me, and that if she really wanted to build a life with me, she'd want to live with me. Her friends, from what I can gather, are telling her to stick to her guns and not let me pressure her into something she's not ready for. I love her and I don't want to give her an ultimatum or make her feel forced into anything. But I also don't want to spend the next few years feeling like we're stuck in relationship limbo. I feel ready to merge our lives more completely, and it's frustrating that she doesn't feel the same way. We've had several more conversations about it, and she keeps saying the same thing. She loves me, she wants to be with me, but she's not ready to live together. She says she needs more time to feel comfortable with that level of commitment. I'm torn between respecting her timeline and feeling like 3 years should have been enough time to know if you want to live with someone. I don't know if I should wait it out and hope she comes around, or if this is a fundamental incompatibility that we won't be able to work through. That story ends there, and honestly, this is such a tough spot to be in. 3 years is a significant amount of time to be together without taking that next step, and I can understand his frustration. At the same time, everyone moves at their own pace with commitment, and forcing someone into living together before they're ready rarely ends well. The real issue here might be whether they're compatible in terms of relationship progression timelines. Sometimes love isn't enough if you're not on the same page about major life steps. Let's move to our next story, and this one involves some serious financial betrayal. My husband spends all our money on hobbies. I'm Laura, I'm 32, and I've been married to my husband Tom for 5 years. We used to have a good handle on our finances, or at least I thought we did. We both work full-time, we split bills fairly, and we've always been able to cover our expenses with a little left over for savings and fun. About a year ago, Tom got really into golf. At first, I thought it was great that he found a hobby he was passionate about. He'd been feeling stressed at work, and I figured having an outlet would be good for him. He started playing on weekends, and he seemed happier and more relaxed. But then the expenses started adding up. First, it was a new set of clubs that cost $800. He said it was a one-time investment that would last for years. Then it was golf lessons at $60 per session, twice a week. Then it was membership fees at the country club, golf shoes, golf clothes, a golf bag, and on and on. I started noticing that our joint checking account was getting lower than usual, but when I asked Tom about it, he said everything was fine and that we were just spending a little more than usual. He promised he'd cut back on the golf expenses. Instead, the spending got worse. I found receipts for premium golf balls, more lessons with a different instructor, tournament entry fees, and weekend golf trips with his buddies. When I confronted him about it, he got defensive and said he deserved to have a hobby that made him happy. The breaking point came last month when our mortgage payment bounced. I was mortified and confused because I thought we had plenty of money in our account. When I logged into our banking app, I discovered that Tom had been using our joint account like his personal golf fund. In the past 3 months alone, he'd spent over $3,000 on golf-related expenses. Our savings account was completely drained. We had late fees on our credit cards, our car payment was overdue, and we had barely enough money left to buy groceries. When I confronted him with the bank statements, he broke down and admitted that his golf spending had gotten out of control. He said he kept telling himself he'd pay everything back when he got his next paycheck, but then he'd see some new piece of equipment or another tournament he wanted to enter. He apologized profusely and promised to stop spending money on golf, but the damage was already done. We're now behind on bills, our credit score has taken a hit, and I've lost all trust in his financial judgment. What makes it worse is that he was hiding it from me. If he'd been honest about how much he was spending, we could have worked out a budget or found a compromise. Instead, he let our bills go unpaid while he spent money we didn't have on his hobby. I love my husband, but I feel like I can't trust him anymore. How can we make financial decisions together when he's proven he'll prioritize his hobbies over our basic living expenses? I don't know how to rebuild trust after something like this. We've started going to financial counselling, and Tom has committed to giving me complete access to all our accounts. But I still feel anxious every time I check our bank balance, wondering what I might find. That story is absolutely infuriating because it's not just about money, it's about trust and partnership. Tom wasn't just overspending on golf, he was actively hiding financial decisions that affected both of them. The fact that their mortgage bounced because he was buying golf balls is just mind-boggling. Financial compatibility is crucial in marriage, and when someone proves they'll let bills go unpaid for their hobbies, that's a fundamental breakdown of responsibility. Laura's going to need more than counselling to get past this level of betrayal. Our next story deals with jealousy and trust issues that are absolutely exhausting to deal with. My boyfriend gets jealous of my guy friends. I'm not sure how to handle this situation anymore, and I'm starting to feel trapped in my own relationship. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 2 years, and this jealousy issue has been getting progressively worse over time. I've always had a mixed group of friends, both guys and girls. Some of these friendships go back to high school or college, and they're really important to me. These aren't random guys I just met. These are people who have been in my life for years, some of them since before I even knew my boyfriend existed. At first, my boyfriend seemed fine with my friendships. He'd met most of my friends and seemed to get along with everyone reasonably well. But about 6 months into our relationship, he started making comments about how much time I spent with my male friends. It started small. He'd ask why I needed to hang out with Jake so much, or he'd make jokes about how Marcus was probably interested in me. I brushed it off because I figured he was just adjusting to being in a serious relationship and learning to trust me. But it kept escalating. Every time I made plans with any of my guy friends, he'd get moody and distant. He'd ask detailed questions about where we were going, who else would be there, what we were planning to do. If I went to grab coffee with a male co-worker, he'd want to see text messages to prove it was just work-related. The worst part is the accusations. He started directly accusing me of cheating or wanting to cheat. Last week I went to a movie with my friend Ryan, someone I've known since freshman year of college. My boyfriend spent the entire evening texting me, asking what we were doing, demanding photos of where I was, and when I got home, he accused me of lying about the movie and said I was probably hooking up with Ryan. I've never given him any reason to doubt my faithfulness. I've never cheated on anyone in my life. I'm completely transparent about my friendships and my plans, but no matter what I do, he finds reasons to be suspicious. He says things like, guys and girls can't just be friends, and those guys are just waiting for their chance with you. He's convinced that every male friend I have is secretly trying to get with me, and that I'm too naive to see it. It's gotten to the point where I feel like I have to choose between my friendships and my relationship. If I hang out with my guy friends, I come home to a fight. If I don't hang out with them, I feel like I'm losing important relationships that have been part of my life for years. I've tried talking to him about it, explaining that these are platonic friendships that mean a lot to me. I've offered to include him more in group activities so he can see for himself that there's nothing romantic happening. But he either finds excuses not to come, or he comes and spends the whole time being weird and possessive. My friends have started noticing too. A few of them have asked me why my boyfriend seems so hostile toward them, and I don't know what to say. It's embarrassing to admit that he's jealous of friendships I've had longer than I've known him. I love my boyfriend, but this jealousy is exhausting. I feel like I'm constantly defending myself against accusations that have no basis in reality. I don't want to lose my friendships, but I also don't want to lose my relationship. Wow, this is such a classic case of controlling behaviour disguised as concern. This guy is essentially trying to isolate her from half her social circle based on nothing but his own insecurities. The fact that she's starting to feel like she has to choose between her long-term friendships and her relationship is a huge red flag. Healthy relationships don't require you to abandon important friendships, especially ones that existed long before the romantic relationship. This kind of jealousy usually gets worse over time, not better. Let's move to a story that deals with one of the biggest relationship deal breakers out there. My wife doesn't want children. I'm David and I'm 35 years old. I've been married to my wife Sarah for 4 years, and we've been together for 7 years total. This issue is tearing our marriage apart, and I don't know what to do anymore. When we first started dating, we talked about kids in general terms. I always assumed we'd have children eventually, and I thought she felt the same way. We'd see cute kids at restaurants or parks, and she'd smile and make positive comments. We'd talk about hypothetical future scenarios that included children, and she never corrected me or said she didn't want them. About 2 years ago, I brought up the idea of starting to try for a baby. We were financially stable, we owned a house, we had good jobs, and I felt ready to become a father. I'd always dreamed of having kids, teaching them things, watching them grow up, being the kind of dad I'd always wanted to be. When I brought it up, Sarah got quiet and said she needed to think about it. I figured she wanted to make sure the timing was right, so I didn't push. But months went by, and every time I tried to bring up the subject, she'd change the topic or say she wasn't ready yet. Finally, about a year ago, I sat her down and told her we needed to have a serious conversation about our future. I explained how important having children was to me and asked her directly where she stood on the issue. That's when she told me the truth. She said she'd never actually wanted children, but she'd been afraid to tell me because she knew how important it was to me. She said she'd been hoping her feelings would change over time, but they hadn't. If anything, the idea of having kids had become less appealing to her as she got older. I was shocked. I felt like our entire relationship had been built on a misunderstanding. All those conversations about our future, all the assumptions I'd made about our life together, suddenly felt meaningless. I asked her why she'd never told me this before, and she said she was scared of losing me. She said she loved me and hoped that maybe she'd change her mind, or that our relationship would be enough without children. We've been in couples therapy for months now, trying to work through this. The therapist has helped us understand each other's perspectives better, but it hasn't changed the fundamental issue. I still desperately want children, and she still absolutely doesn't. Sarah has been completely honest about her feelings. She says the idea of pregnancy terrifies her, that she doesn't have maternal instincts, and that she can't imagine giving up her freedom and independence to raise a child. She says she's happy with our life as it is and doesn't want to change it. I understand her position, but I can't just turn off my desire to be a father. It's not something I can compromise on or forget about. I've wanted to be a dad since I was young, and I feel like that dream is slipping away. We've talked about adoption, but Sarah says it's not about the pregnancy. It's about not wanting to be responsible for raising a child at all. We've talked about me being the primary caregiver, but she says that wouldn't be fair to the child or to her. I love my wife more than anything, but I'm starting to resent her for not being honest about this from the beginning. If I'd known she didn't want children, I would have had to make a different choice about our relationship early on. Now I feel trapped. Do I give up my dream of being a father to stay with the woman I love? Do I end my marriage to find someone who wants children, even though I can't imagine loving anyone else the way I love Sarah? Our families keep asking when we're going to have kids, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to handle those conversations. My parents are excited about becoming grandparents, and I don't know how to tell them it might never happen. This story ends right here, and honestly, this is one of the most heartbreaking situations couples can face. Both David and Sarah are being completely reasonable within their own perspectives, but they want fundamentally incompatible things. You can't compromise on having children. You either have them or you don't. Sarah should have been honest earlier, but I understand why she held on to hope that her feelings might change. This is exactly why these conversations need to happen early in serious relationships, because by the time you're married, the stakes are so much higher. Let's move to another story that shows how household responsibilities can become a major source of relationship tension. My boyfriend never helps around the house. I work 40 hours a week at my marketing job, just like my boyfriend does at his office. We both get home around the same time, we're both equally tired, and we both live in the same apartment that gets equally messy from both of us. But somehow, I'm the only one who ever cleans anything. It started small, and I didn't think much of it at first. I'd do the dishes after dinner while he watched TV. I'd throw in a load of laundry on the weekends while he played video games. I'd vacuum and dust while he hung out with friends. I told myself it wasn't a big deal because I didn't mind cleaning, and it seemed easier to just do it myself than to ask him to help. But over the past year, it's gotten completely out of hand. I do all the grocery shopping, all the meal planning, all the cooking, all the dishes, all the laundry, all the bathroom cleaning, all the vacuuming, all the dusting, all the organising. He literally doesn't lift a finger to maintain our living space. Last weekend was the breaking point. I spent my entire Saturday cleaning our apartment from top to bottom. I scrubbed the bathroom, mopped the floors, organised our closets, cleaned out the refrigerator, did 3 loads of laundry, and restocked our pantry. It took me 8 hours. Meanwhile, my boyfriend spent the day on the couch playing video games and ordering food delivery. When I finally finished cleaning, he looked around and said, "Wow, the place looks great," like he was some kind of guest commenting on someone else's work. I snapped and asked him why he never helps with any of the housework. His response was that he doesn't really notice when things are dirty, so it doesn't bother him as much as it bothers me. He said since I care more about having a clean house, it makes sense that I'd be the one to clean it. I explained that this wasn't about caring more or less about cleanliness. This was about both of us being responsible for the space we share. I told him that his mess contributes to the overall messiness just as much as mine does, so he should contribute to cleaning it up just as much as I do. He said he'd try to help more, but nothing has changed. If anything, he's gotten more oblivious. He'll leave dirty dishes on the coffee table for days. He'll use the last of something and not add it to the grocery list. He'll drop his clothes on the floor and leave them there until I pick them up. When I bring it up, he gets defensive and says I'm nagging him. He says he's not used to keeping things as clean as I like them, and that I should just tell him what needs to be done, instead of expecting him to figure it out on his own. But I don't want to be his manager. I don't want to have to assign him chores like he's a child. I want him to look around our shared living space and take initiative to maintain it without me having to direct his every move. I've tried making chore charts, but he ignores them. I've tried doing less cleaning to see if he'll pick up the slack, but he just seems perfectly content living in mess. I've tried talking to him about how this makes me feel, but he doesn't seem to understand why it's such a big deal to me. I love him, but I'm starting to feel like his mother instead of his girlfriend. I'm exhausted from working full-time and then coming home to a second job of maintaining our entire household by myself. That story ends there. This is such a frustrating situation because it's not really about cleaning, it's about respect and partnership. When one person consistently refuses to contribute to shared responsibilities, they're essentially saying their time is more valuable than their partner's time. The excuse of not noticing mess is just weaponized incompetence, and expecting your partner to manage you like an employee is incredibly unfair. This kind of imbalance breeds resentment that can poison an entire relationship. Here's our next story, and this one involves digital infidelity that's becoming more common in our connected world. My girlfriend flirts with other guys online. I'm Sarah, and I've been with my boyfriend Marcus for 2 years. I thought we had a solid relationship built on trust and communication, but something I discovered last week has completely shattered my confidence in us. Marcus has always been active on social media. He's got Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, all the usual apps. I never thought anything of it because I use social media too, and we've always been pretty open about our online activities. We follow each other on everything, and occasionally like or comment on each other's posts. Last Tuesday, Marcus left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went to take a shower. I wasn't trying to snoop, but a notification popped up from Snapchat with a preview that made my stomach drop. It was from a girl named Ashley, and the preview showed what looked like the beginning of a flirty message. I know I probably shouldn't have, but I opened his phone and looked at the conversation. What I found was months of flirtatious messages between Marcus and this girl Ashley. They were sending each other selfies, making suggestive comments, and having the kind of conversations that definitely crossed the line from friendly to inappropriate. But Ashley wasn't the only one. As I scrolled through his messages, I found similar conversations with at least 5 other girls. He was telling them they were beautiful, asking about their dating lives, making jokes that were way too personal and intimate for someone in a committed relationship. On Instagram, he was sliding into DMs and leaving flirty comments on girls' photos. Things like fire emojis and comments about how stunning they looked. On Discord, he was in several servers where he was having ongoing conversations with girls about everything from their relationships to their personal problems. The worst part was seeing how different his online personality was from how he acted with me. Online, he was charming, attentive, funny, and constantly complimenting these other women. In person with me, he was often distracted, rarely complimented me, and seemed to take our relationship for granted. When he got out of the shower, I confronted him with his phone in my hands. At first, he tried to downplay it and said it was just harmless flirting that didn't mean anything. He said he would never actually cheat on me, and that talking to other girls online was just entertainment. I explained that this felt like cheating to me. He was forming emotional connections with other women, giving them attention and validation that should have been directed toward our relationship. He was investing time and energy into flirting with strangers instead of nurturing what we had together. Marcus got defensive and said I was overreacting. He said guys flirt online all the time and it doesn't mean anything. He said I was being insecure and controlling by trying to police his social media interactions. I asked him how he would feel if I was sending flirty messages to random guys and telling them how attractive they were. He admitted he wouldn't like it, but said that was different because girls get more attention online than guys do. We've had several fights about it since then, and I still don't feel like he understands why this hurts me so much. He says he's stopped talking to those girls, but I don't know if I believe him. How can I trust him when he's proven he's capable of maintaining secret flirtatious relationships behind my back? I keep thinking about all those months when he was texting other girls while sitting right next to me on the couch. All those times he was on his phone during our dates, probably chatting with Ashley or one of the others. It makes me feel stupid and naive for not noticing sooner. The story ends right there, and honestly, this hits on something so many couples are dealing with in the social media age. Marcus is absolutely wrong when he says this kind of online flirting is harmless, especially when it's happening consistently with multiple people over months. The fact that he was more charming and attentive to random women online than he was to his actual girlfriend is particularly painful. Digital cheating might not be physical, but the emotional betrayal is just as real, and Sarah has every right to feel hurt and violated by this discovery. Let's move to a story about family dynamics and how they can impact relationships. My fiancé's parents don't like me. I'm Jason, and I've been engaged to my fiancée Rachel for 6 months. We're planning to get married next spring, and up until last week, I thought her parents had accepted me as part of the family. Turns out I was completely wrong. Rachel and I have been together for 3 years, and her parents have always been polite to me. They include me in family gatherings, they make conversation when I'm around, and they seem genuinely interested in my job and my hobbies. I've spent countless holidays and weekends at their house, and I thought we had developed a good relationship. Rachel comes from a pretty well-off family. Her dad is a successful lawyer, her mum is a real estate agent, and they live in this beautiful house in the nicest part of town. I come from a more modest background. My parents are both teachers, and I work as a mechanic at a local auto shop. I make decent money, and I'm good at what I do, but I'm definitely not on the same socio-economic level as Rachel's family. Last weekend, we were all at Rachel's parents' house for a family barbecue. After dinner, I went inside to use the bathroom, and as I was walking back toward the patio, I heard Rachel's parents talking in the kitchen. They didn't know I was there, and what I heard absolutely crushed me. Rachel's mum was saying that she didn't understand what Rachel saw in me. She said I was a nice enough guy, but that Rachel could do so much better. She said she was worried that Rachel was settling and that she'd regret marrying someone who couldn't provide the kind of lifestyle she was used to. Rachel's dad agreed and said he thought I was too blue-collar for their family. He said he'd hoped Rachel would end up with someone more educated, maybe a doctor or a lawyer, or someone in business. He said he was embarrassed to tell his friends and colleagues that his daughter was marrying a mechanic. Then Rachel's mum said something that really hurt. She said she was hoping Rachel would come to her senses before the wedding and realise that I wasn't good enough for her. She said they'd raised Rachel to have high standards, and she couldn't understand why Rachel was lowering them for me. I stood there frozen, listening to them tear me apart, while their daughter was outside setting up dessert for everyone. These people who had been welcoming me into their home for 3 years actually thought I was beneath their family the entire time. I didn't know what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to walk into that kitchen and confront them right then and there. Part of me wanted to leave immediately and never come back. Instead, I quietly went back outside and tried to act normal for the rest of the evening. I haven't told Rachel what I heard yet, but it's eating me alive. Every interaction I have with her parents now feels fake and uncomfortable. When her mum asks me about work or her dad talks to me about sports, all I can think about is how they really feel about me. I keep questioning everything about our relationship now. Does Rachel actually love me, or is she rebelling against her parents by dating someone they wouldn't approve of? Does she see a real future with me, or is she just enjoying the novelty of being with someone different from her usual type? I also can't stop thinking about what our future would look like if we get married. Will her parents ever truly accept me, or will I always be the son-in-law they're ashamed of? Will they treat our future children differently because their father isn't successful enough? Will Rachel eventually start to see me the way her parents do? I love Rachel more than anything, and I thought we were building a life together based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility. But now, I'm wondering if I'm just fooling myself about fitting into her world. That story ends there. This is absolutely heartbreaking because Jason thought he'd been accepted for 3 years, only to discover it was all an act. The class discrimination from Rachel's parents is disgusting, especially since they've been fake to his face while judging him behind his back. This puts Rachel in an impossible position too, because she'll have to choose between her fiancé and her family's approval. The fact that they think being a mechanic makes someone not good enough shows how shallow and elitist they really are. Our next story deals with financial responsibility and what happens when one partner refuses to contribute. My boyfriend refuses to get a job. I'm Claire, and I've been dating my boyfriend Jake for about 1.5 years. When we first met, he had just quit his job at a marketing firm because he said it was crushing his soul and he needed to figure out what he really wanted to do with his life. I admired his courage to leave a situation that was making him miserable, and I supported his decision to take some time to explore his options. That was 18 months ago, and Jake still doesn't have a job. At first, he was actively looking for work and going on interviews. He said he wanted to find something that aligned with his values and gave him a sense of purpose, not just a paycheck. I thought that was admirable, even if it meant he'd be unemployed for a few months while he found the right opportunity. But as time went on, Jake's job search became less and less active. He started sleeping in later, spending more time playing video games, and talking vaguely about starting his own business, without ever taking concrete steps toward making it happen. When I'd ask about his job search, he'd say he was working on some things or that he was waiting to hear back from people. Meanwhile, I've been paying for everything. I cover rent, groceries, utilities, gas, entertainment, everything. Jake occasionally talks about paying me back when he gets on his feet, but he never seems to actually be working toward getting on his feet. I make decent money as a nurse, but supporting 2 people on 1 income is stressful. I've had to dip into my savings multiple times to cover our expenses, and I've had to turn down social activities with friends because I can't afford to go out as much as I used to. The worst part is that Jake doesn't seem to appreciate the financial strain he's putting on me. He'll suggest expensive restaurants for dinner or talk about trips he wants to take, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I'm the one who would have to pay for everything. When I bring up the job situation, Jake gets defensive and says I don't understand the pressure he's under. He says he doesn't want to just take any job because he's afraid of getting stuck in another soul-crushing situation. He talks about wanting to start a podcast or become a freelance consultant, but he never actually does anything to make these ideas reality. I've suggested that he could get a temporary job while he figures out his long-term career goals, but he says that would be giving up on his dreams. He acts like working at a coffee shop or a retail store while he builds his business would be beneath him. Last month, I told Jake that I needed him to contribute financially to our relationship, even if it wasn't his dream job. I explained that I couldn't continue supporting both of us indefinitely and that it wasn't fair for me to carry the entire financial burden of our relationship. Jake said he understood and promised he'd start looking for work more seriously. But it's been a month and nothing has changed. He still sleeps until noon, still spends his days playing video games or scrolling through social media, still talks about his big plans without taking any action. I feel like I'm dating a teenager instead of a grown man. I love Jake, but I'm starting to resent him for his complete lack of responsibility and initiative. I'm tired of feeling like his mother instead of his girlfriend. My friends and family keep asking me why I'm staying with someone who won't even try to support himself, let alone contribute to our relationship. I keep hoping he'll change, but I'm starting to realize that he's comfortable with this arrangement and has no real motivation to change as long as I'm willing to support him. That story is over, and wow, Jake has basically found himself a sugar mama and is perfectly content to coast on Claire's hard work indefinitely. 18 months of unemployment while your partner pays for everything isn't taking time to find yourself. It's straight up freeloading. The fact that he thinks retail work is beneath him while he's literally living off someone else's income is beyond entitled. Claire is enabling this behaviour by continuing to support him, and Jake has zero incentive to change as long as she keeps paying the bills. Here's a story about career ambition and how it can create conflict in relationships. My husband doesn't support my career. I got the promotion I've been working toward for 3 years last month. I'm going to be managing a team of 12 people. I'll be making 30% more money, and I'll finally be doing the kind of strategic work I went to business school for. I was over the moon when my boss offered me the position. When I came home to tell my husband the good news, his reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of celebrating with me, he immediately started asking questions about the time commitment and travel requirements. When I explained that the new role would probably mean some longer hours and occasional business trips, his whole demeanour changed. He said he was concerned about how the promotion would affect our family life. We have 2 kids, ages 6 and 9, and he said he was worried about me being away from home more often. He asked who would handle school pickups and help with homework if I was working late or travelling for business. I pointed out that we already have a pretty good system worked out. Our kids are in after-school care, we both share pick-up duties depending on our schedules, and we split homework help. I also mentioned that the extra income from my promotion would give us more flexibility to hire help when we need it. But my husband kept pushing back. He said he thought I was already working too much and that taking on more responsibility would make me even more stressed and unavailable. He said he missed the way things used to be when I had a less demanding job and more time to focus on our family. Then he said something that really hurt. He told me he didn't think I needed to keep climbing the corporate ladder because he makes enough money to support our family comfortably. He said maybe it was time for me to prioritise being a wife and mother over advancing my career. I was shocked. I've been working in this field for 10 years, I have an MBA, and I've been steadily building my career since before we even met. He's always known that my work was important to me and that I had ambitious professional goals. I never thought he saw my career as optional or secondary to his. I tried to explain that this promotion wasn't just about money. It was about professional fulfillment, using my skills and education, and setting an example for our daughters about what women can achieve. I said I wanted our kids to see that both parents can have successful careers and that we can work together to make it happen. My husband said he understood that my career was important to me, but that our family had to come first. He said he was worried that if I took this promotion, I'd become one of those workaholic mothers who misses out on their kids' lives because they're too focused on their jobs. We've been arguing about this for weeks now, and I still haven't given my boss a final answer about the promotion. My husband isn't directly forbidding me from taking it, but he's making it clear that he disapproves and that he thinks it's a bad decision for our family. I feel trapped between the career opportunity I've worked so hard for and my husband's expectation that I should prioritise family over professional advancement. I don't understand why we can't figure out a way to make both work, especially since this promotion would benefit our entire family financially. The worst part is feeling like my husband doesn't respect my ambitions or understand why my career matters to me. After 10 years of supporting his professional goals and never questioning his work commitments, I expected him to be excited about my success instead of treating it like a threat to our family. That story ends right there. This is such a classic example of how some partners are supportive until success becomes real and threatens the status quo. Her husband is essentially asking her to cap her career potential because it might require him to step up more at home. The fact that he thinks her career is optional because he makes enough money completely dismisses her professional identity and personal fulfillment. It's telling that he's worried about her becoming a workaholic mother, but probably never questioned whether he might be a workaholic father. Let's dive into our next story, and this one touches on something that can slowly poison a relationship over time. My girlfriend keeps bringing up my past mistakes. I'm honestly at my breaking point with this pattern, and I don't know how to fix it anymore. Every time we have any kind of disagreement or argument, my girlfriend brings up things I did wrong months, or even years ago. We've been together for about 2.5 years, and I'll admit that I've made some mistakes during our relationship. Early on, I forgot her birthday because I was swamped with a work project. I felt terrible about it and apologised profusely. I made it up to her the next weekend with a special dinner and gifts. She said she forgave me, and I thought we moved past it. Another time, about a year ago, I went out with my friends and stayed out way later than I said I would. I lost track of time and forgot to text her updates. She was worried and upset when I finally got home at 2 a.m. I apologised, acknowledged that I should have communicated better, and promised to be more considerate about keeping her informed when I'm out. There have been other smaller incidents too. Times when I was thoughtless or inconsiderate. Times when I said something that hurt her feelings. Times when I prioritised other things over our relationship. Each time I apologised, we talked through it, and I thought we resolved the issue. But apparently, nothing is ever actually resolved. Every single argument we have, no matter what it starts about, eventually turns into a recap of every mistake I've ever made. If we disagree about where to go for dinner, suddenly she's bringing up the time I forgot her birthday. If I'm running late to meet her, she starts talking about that night I stayed out too late with my friends. Last week we got into an argument because I accidentally double-booked myself and had to cancel our movie plans to attend a work event that I'd forgotten about. It was a genuine mistake, and I apologised and offered to reschedule for the next night. But instead of just dealing with that immediate issue, she launched into this speech about how I never prioritise her and how this was just like all the other times I'd let her down. She listed off incident after incident, going back to the very beginning of our relationship. She brought up the birthday thing, the late night out, times I'd been distracted by my phone when we were together, times I'd made plans without checking with her first. It was like she had this mental catalogue of every single thing I'd ever done wrong, and she was determined to remind me of all of it. I tried to point out that I'd apologised for all of these things when they happened, and that I'd made efforts to change my behaviour. But she said that my apologies didn't matter if I kept making similar mistakes. She said the pattern of behaviour was more important than individual apologies. The thing is, I have tried to learn from my mistakes. I'm much better about communicating when I'm out with friends. I put reminders in my phone for important dates. I try to be more present when we're spending time together. I'm not perfect, but I feel like I've grown a lot as a partner over the past 2 years. But it doesn't seem to matter to her. Every new mistake I make gets added to the permanent record, and every old mistake gets brought up again and again. I feel like I'm being held accountable for things I've already apologized for and tried to fix. It's gotten to the point where I'm afraid to disagree with her about anything because I know it's going to turn into a rehashing of my entire relationship history. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells, terrified of making any mistake because I know it'll be ammunition for future arguments. When I told her that I felt like she wasn't letting me move past my mistakes, she said that I was trying to avoid accountability. She said that if I really cared about changing, I wouldn't keep making similar errors. She said that bringing up the past was the only way to make me understand the impact of my actions. I don't know how to break this cycle. I feel like I'm being punished indefinitely for mistakes I made when I was still learning how to be a good partner. I want to grow and improve, but I also need to feel like there's a path to redemption, not just eternal judgment. That story ends right there. This is emotional scorekeeping at its worst, and it's incredibly toxic for any relationship. When someone refuses to let go of past mistakes and weaponizes them in every future argument, they're essentially saying that growth and change are impossible. This creates a dynamic where one person can never escape their past, no matter how much they've improved. Healthy relationships require the ability to forgive, move forward, and judge current behavior on its own merit, not as part of some permanent record of failures. Our next story deals with a major change that can completely alter relationship dynamics. My wife wants separate bedrooms. I never saw this coming, and I'm still trying to process what it means for our marriage. My wife and I have been married for 8 years, and we've always shared a bed. Sure, we've had the occasional night where one of us sleeps on the couch because someone's snoring or sick, but our bedroom has always been our shared space. Last month, completely out of nowhere, my wife suggested that we start sleeping in separate bedrooms. She said she'd been thinking about it for a while and thought it might improve both of our sleep quality and overall relationship satisfaction. I was completely blindsided by this suggestion. I asked her what was wrong with our current sleeping arrangement, and she said nothing was specifically wrong, but that she thought we might both sleep better apart. She said I sometimes snore, and she's a light sleeper, and that she often wakes up when I get up early for work. She also said that having separate bedrooms would give us both more personal space and independence. She said we could decorate our rooms however we wanted, keep our own schedules without disturbing each other, and that it might even make our time together more special because it would be more intentional. I tried to understand her reasoning, but honestly, it felt like a rejection. Sharing a bed with my wife has always been one of my favourite parts of being married. I love falling asleep next to her, waking up together, having those quiet conversations in bed before we get up in the morning. The idea of sleeping alone every night feels lonely and disconnected. When I expressed these concerns, she said I was being too sentimental and that separate bedrooms didn't mean we loved each other any less. She said plenty of happy couples sleep apart, and that prioritizing good sleep could actually strengthen our relationship by making us both more rested and less irritable. She'd clearly done her research and had statistics about how couples who sleep separately often report better sleep quality and less relationship conflict. She said we could still be intimate whenever we wanted, and that we could even have sleepovers in each other's rooms sometimes. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of the end for our marriage. In my mind, separate bedrooms meant we were becoming roommates instead of spouses. I worried that it would create emotional distance and make us feel more like friends living together than husband and wife. I asked her if there were other issues in our marriage that were making her want more space from me. She insisted that this wasn't about relationship problems, but purely about sleep and personal space. She said she'd been researching ways to improve our overall quality of life, and that separate bedrooms kept coming up as a solution that many couples found beneficial. We compromised and agreed to try it for a month to see how it felt. She moved into the guest bedroom, and we started sleeping apart. The first few nights were awful for me. I felt lonely and disconnected, and I had trouble falling asleep without her there. But I have to admit, after a few weeks, I did start sleeping better. I wasn't waking up when she moved around in the night, and I could read or watch TV in bed without worrying about disturbing her. I also stopped feeling guilty about my early morning alarm. However, the emotional distance I was worried about did start to develop. We were spending less time talking before bed and in the morning. Our spontaneous, intimate moments became much less frequent because we had to be more intentional about when and where we were together. The month trial period ended last week, and she wants to make the separate bedroom arrangement permanent. She says she's been sleeping better than she has in years and feels more rested and happy during the day. She says our relationship feels more balanced because we're both getting the space we need. I'm torn because I can see the practical benefits, but I miss the intimacy of sharing a bed with my wife. I feel like we're sacrificing an important part of our emotional connection for the sake of better sleep, and I'm not sure that trade-off is worth it. That story ends there. This is such a delicate situation because both perspectives are completely valid. Better sleep can absolutely improve a relationship, and lots of happy couples do sleep separately for practical reasons. But the emotional intimacy of sharing a bed is also really important for many people, and losing that connection can feel like a fundamental change in the relationship. The key is whether both partners genuinely feel good about the arrangement, or if one person is just going along with it to keep the peace. Let's move to a story about body image and how criticism from a partner can be devastating. My boyfriend criticizes my weight. I used to feel confident about my body, but my boyfriend's constant comments have completely destroyed my self-esteem. We've been together for about a year and a half, and his criticism about my appearance has gotten progressively worse over time. When we first started dating, he would compliment how I looked and seemed attracted to me. I'm not model thin, but I've always been comfortable with my body. I eat reasonably well, I stay active, and I felt good about myself before this relationship. The comments started subtly. He'd make jokes about me having seconds at dinner, or he'd suggest we go for a walk after eating because it would be good for us. He'd comment on other women's bodies in a way that made it clear he preferred thinner figures. Over time, the comments became more direct and hurtful. He started telling me that I'd be even more beautiful if I lost some weight. He'd pat my stomach or grab my thighs and make comments about how I could work on those areas. He started buying me workout clothes for gifts and signing us up for gym memberships. When I tried to tell him that his comments were hurting my feelings, he said he was just trying to help me be my best self. He said he loved me and wanted me to be healthy and confident. He said that as my boyfriend, it was his job to be honest with me about things other people might be too polite to mention. The criticism has extended beyond just weight. He comments on my clothes, saying certain outfits are unflattering or make me look bigger than I am. He suggests different hairstyles or makeup looks that he thinks would be more flattering. He's basically appointed himself as my personal style consultant, except his advice always seems to focus on minimizing or changing things about my natural appearance. Last month, he suggested I try a specific diet plan that his co-worker's girlfriend had used successfully. When I said I wasn't interested in dieting, he said he was disappointed that I wasn't willing to put effort into improving myself. He said he was concerned that I was letting myself go and that it reflected poorly on both of us. The worst part is how his comments have affected my self-perception. I used to look in the mirror and feel generally positive about what I saw. Now I scrutinize every inch of my body, looking for the flaws he's pointed out. I've started avoiding certain clothes that I used to love because I can hear his voice in my head criticizing how they look. I've become self-conscious about eating in front of him. I'll skip meals or eat very little when we're together because I don't want to give him more ammunition for criticism. I've started declining social invitations because I feel uncomfortable with how I look, and I'm worried he'll make comments about my appearance in front of other people. When we're intimate, I find myself trying to hide my body or position myself in ways that minimize the areas he's criticized. I used to feel sexy and confident with him, but now I feel like I'm being evaluated and judged every time he looks at me. I've tried talking to him about how his comments make me feel, but he insists that he's trying to motivate me to be healthier. He says that if he didn't care about me, he wouldn't bother trying to help me improve. He says I'm being too sensitive and that I should appreciate having a partner who's honest with me instead of one who just tells me what I want to hear. My friends have started noticing changes in my behaviour and confidence. A few of them have asked if everything is okay because I seem less happy and more anxious than I used to be. I'm embarrassed to tell them what's happening because I don't want them to think badly of my boyfriend or judge me for staying with someone who treats me this way. I love him, but I'm starting to realise that his constant criticism is damaging my mental health and self-esteem. I don't know if this is something we can work through or if this is just who he is as a partner. That story ends there. This is emotional abuse disguised as concern, plain and simple. A loving partner doesn't systematically tear down their significant other's self-esteem under the guise of helping them improve. The fact that she's gone from confident to constantly hiding her body shows just how damaging this psychological manipulation has been. Real love accepts and celebrates your partner as they are, not as a project to be fixed. Here's our next story about friendship boundaries in relationships. My girlfriend doesn't like my friends. This has become a major source of tension in our relationship, and I'm not sure how to handle it anymore. I've been with my girlfriend for about 10 months, and she's made it increasingly clear that she has serious problems with my friend group. I have a close-knit group of 4 guys that I've been friends with since college. We're all in our late 20s now, and we try to hang out at least once a week, usually on Friday nights. We'll play video games, watch sports, go to bars, just the typical stuff guys do when they hang out together. My girlfriend has met my friends several times, and she's always polite when she's around them. But when we're alone, she constantly criticises them and complains about the time I spend with them. She says they're immature and that hanging out with them is holding me back from growing up. She has specific complaints about each of them. She says Mike drinks too much and is a bad influence on me. She says Josh is irresponsible because he's still renting an apartment instead of buying a house. She says Alex tells too many crude jokes and that his sense of humour is offensive. She says Ryan is lazy because he plays video games in his free time instead of pursuing more productive hobbies. According to her, all of my friends are stuck in some kind of extended adolescence, and by association so am I. She says that spending time with them prevents me from developing more mature interests and relationships. She suggested that I should start making friends with couples our age, or people who are more career-focused and ambitious. The criticism has escalated to the point where she gets visibly upset when I make plans with my friends. She'll ask why I need to see them so often, and then suggest alternative activities that we could do together instead. She's even started scheduling things for us on Friday nights specifically to prevent me from hanging out with them. Last month, she directly asked me to stop seeing them so frequently. She said that once a month would be more appropriate for someone in a serious relationship, and that weekly hangouts were excessive. She told me that if I really loved her and was committed to our future together, I'd be willing to prioritise our relationship over my friendships. When I tried to explain that these guys have been my friends for almost a decade and that they're important to me, she said that was exactly the problem. According to her, I was more loyal to them than I was to her, and I cared more about their approval than hers. She started making me feel guilty about every plan I make with them. If I tell her I'm going to hang out with the guys on Friday, she'll get quiet and withdrawn. She'll make comments about how I'm choosing them over her, even if we've spent the entire week together and already have plans for the weekend. The worst part is that she started criticising me by comparing me to my friends. If I make a joke she doesn't find funny, she'll say I'm acting like Alex. If I want to stay in and play video games instead of going out, she'll say I'm being like Ryan. She's basically using my friends as examples of everything she doesn't want me to be. My friends have started to notice the tension too. They've asked me why I seem stressed when we hang out, and why I check my phone constantly. A couple of them have even mentioned that it feels like my girlfriend doesn't like them, and they've started inviting me to things less frequently because they don't want to cause problems in my relationship. I feel caught between my girlfriend and my friends, and I don't know how to resolve this conflict. I love my girlfriend, and I want her to be happy, but I also don't want to abandon friendships that have been important to me for years. I don't think my friends are perfect, but I also don't think they're the terrible influences she makes them out to be. When I've suggested that maybe she could try to get to know them better, or find things she has in common with them, she says she's already given them a fair chance, and that she just doesn't think they're good people for me to be around. That story ends there. This is classic isolating behaviour that should be setting off major red flags. She's systematically trying to separate him from his support system by criticising his friends and making him feel guilty for maintaining those relationships. Healthy partners might not love all of your friends, but they respect that those friendships matter to you, and they don't try to sabotage them. When someone demands you choose between them and your friends, they're showing you exactly how controlling they plan to be. Let's move to a story about priorities and feeling like you're competing with your partner's social life. My husband always chooses his friends over me. I feel like I'm married to someone who treats me like a backup plan, and it's destroying my self-worth and our relationship. We've been married for 4 years, and this pattern has been getting worse over the past 2 years. My husband has a group of college buddies that he's remained close with, which I think is great in theory. I believe it's important for people to maintain friendships outside of their marriage. But the problem is that these friends always seem to take priority over our relationship and our plans together. We'll make plans for a date night or a quiet evening at home, and inevitably one of his friends will call with some last-minute invitation. A spontaneous poker game, a random bar crawl, tickets to a game they just got. Whatever it is, my husband immediately abandons our plans to join them. When I express disappointment about our cancelled plans, he tells me that opportunities to hang out with his friends don't come up that often, and that we can do our thing any time. He says I should be more understanding because his friends are important to him, and he doesn't get to see them as much as he'd like. But the truth is, he sees them at least twice a week, sometimes more. Meanwhile, we barely have any uninterrupted time together because he's always available to them whenever they call. I've started to feel like his friends get the best version of him, while I get whatever energy is left over. Skychi, last weekend was a perfect example. We'd planned to spend Saturday together, just the two of us. We were going to sleep in, make breakfast together, maybe go for a hike, just enjoy each other's company. Friday night, his friend called saying they were going on a spontaneous fishing trip and leaving early Saturday morning. Without even discussing it with me, my husband said yes. He told me about it after he'd already committed, saying he was sure I'd understand because fishing opportunities with his buddies were rare. Never mind that quiet weekend time with his wife was apparently not rare or valuable enough to protect. When I told him I was hurt that he'd cancelled our plans without even talking to me first, he said I was being selfish and controlling. He said I knew his friends were important to him when we got married, and that I should support his friendships instead of trying to limit them. But I'm not trying to limit his friendships. I'm trying to have a marriage where I feel like a priority instead of an afterthought. I'm trying to have a partner who considers my feelings before making decisions that affect both of us. The pattern extends beyond just social plans. If his friends need help moving, he volunteers our entire weekend without asking me. If they want to plan a guy's trip, he books time off work and commits to spending money without discussing it with me first. If they're going through relationship problems, he'll spend hours on the phone with them, even if it's during time we've set aside to be together. I've tried talking to him about finding more balance, but he gets defensive immediately. He says I'm trying to isolate him from his friends and that I'm being clingy and needy. He says that healthy marriages require both partners to maintain their individual identities and relationships. I agree with that in principle, but I don't think that's what's happening here. I think he's using his friendships as an excuse to avoid investing in our marriage. It's easier for him to hang out with his buddies and have fun than it is to do the work of maintaining a strong relationship with me. The worst part is how it makes me feel about myself. I've started to wonder if I'm just not interesting enough or fun enough to compete with his friends for his attention. I've started to question whether he actually enjoys spending time with me, or if he just sees me as an obligation. My friends keep asking me why I put up with feeling like a second choice in my own marriage. Honestly, I don't have a good answer anymore. I love my husband, but I'm starting to realize that love isn't enough if you don't feel valued and prioritized by your partner. That story ends there. This is heartbreaking because she's essentially living as a single person who happens to be married to someone who's never available. When your spouse consistently chooses social activities over quality time with you, they're sending a clear message about what they value most. A healthy marriage requires both partners to protect their relationship time and consider each other's needs when making social commitments. She's not asking him to abandon his friends. She's asking to matter enough that their plans together can't be cancelled at a moment's notice. Here's a story about professional help and the resistance some people have to working on their relationship. My partner thinks therapy is a waste. I've been trying to get my partner to consider couples counselling for months now, but he refuses to even entertain the idea. We've been together for 3 years, and while we love each other, we have some recurring issues that I think could really benefit from professional guidance. We have the same fights over and over again. We miscommunicate, we make assumptions about each other's feelings, and we both have patterns of behaviour that seem to trigger negative reactions in each other. I feel like we're stuck in these cycles and I don't know how to break out of them on our own. When I first brought up the idea of couples therapy, my partner immediately shut it down. He said that therapy is for people who can't handle their own problems, and that we should be able to work through our issues without involving strangers. He said that talking to a therapist would be admitting that our relationship was failing. I tried to explain that I see therapy as preventative care, like going to the doctor for a checkup, even when you're not sick. I said that having a neutral third party help us communicate better could strengthen our relationship, not weaken it. I told him that I thought it showed maturity and commitment to invest in professional help for something as important as our relationship, but he wasn't having any of it. He said that therapists don't know anything about our specific situation and that they'd probably just take sides or give us generic advice that we could find in any self-help book. He said that paying someone to listen to our problems was a waste of money that we could spend on more enjoyable activities together. When I pressed him about why he was so resistant to the idea, he said that he didn't want to air our dirty laundry to some stranger who would judge us. He said that what happens in our relationship should stay between us, and that involving a therapist would violate the privacy and intimacy of our partnership. I pointed out that therapists are bound by confidentiality and that their job is specifically not to judge people, but to help them work through their problems. I said that I'd done research and found several therapists in our area who specialise in couples counselling and have good reviews. He said that if I needed therapy to be happy in our relationship, then maybe we weren't right for each other. He said that people in healthy relationships don't need professional help to communicate, and that suggesting therapy meant I had serious doubts about our compatibility. This really hurt because I don't have doubts about our compatibility. I think we're great together in many ways, but I also think we could be even better with some guidance on how to communicate more effectively and resolve conflicts more constructively. After that conversation, I started looking into individual therapy for myself. I figured that if he wouldn't go to couples counselling, maybe I could work on my own communication patterns and relationship skills. When I mentioned this to him, he was equally resistant. He said that if I went to therapy by myself to talk about our relationship, the therapist would only get my side of the story and would probably encourage me to leave him. He said that individual therapy could be just as damaging to our relationship as couples therapy. I'm frustrated because I feel like he's closed off any possibility of us getting professional help to improve our relationship. Meanwhile, we keep having the same arguments and falling into the same negative patterns. I see our problems as solvable with the right tools and guidance, but he seems to think that acknowledging we need help is equivalent to admitting defeat. When I've talked to friends about this situation, most of them have been supportive of my desire to try therapy. A few of them have mentioned that their own relationships improved significantly after counselling. But my partner dismisses these examples, saying that other people's experiences don't apply to our situation. I don't know how to move forward when one person in the relationship is open to getting help, and the other person sees that openness as a threat or a sign of weakness. That story ends there. This resistance to therapy is often rooted in shame and the mistaken belief that needing help means you're failing somehow. The irony is that couples who seek professional guidance are actually showing more commitment to their relationship, not less. When someone refuses to even consider therapy, they're essentially saying they'd rather stay stuck in destructive patterns than admit there's room for improvement. His threat that she shouldn't need therapy to be happy with him is particularly manipulative because it frames her desire for growth as disloyalty. Let's move to a story about family relationships and how they can become a source of conflict. My girlfriend gets angry when I see my family. This has become such a huge issue in our relationship that I'm starting to dread any mention of my parents or siblings. We've been together for about 1.5 years, and my girlfriend's hostility toward my family visits has gotten progressively worse over time. I come from a close-knit family, and I've always enjoyed spending time with my parents and my 2 younger sisters. Before I started dating my girlfriend, I would visit them about twice a month, usually for Sunday dinner or to help my dad with projects around the house. It was never anything dramatic or time-consuming, just normal family stuff. When my girlfriend and I first started dating, she seemed fine with my family relationships. She'd met my parents a few times and got along with them reasonably well. She'd even joined me for a couple of family dinners and seemed to enjoy herself. But about 6 months into our relationship, she started making comments about how much time I spent with my family. She'd ask why I needed to see them so often and suggest that we could spend that time together instead. She'd make jokes about me being a mama's boy, which stung because I didn't think there was anything wrong with having a good relationship with my parents. The comments escalated into arguments whenever I made plans to visit my family. She'd get moody and withdrawn if I told her I was going to Sunday dinner at my parents' house. She'd ask why my family was more important to me than she was, and why I always chose them over her. I tried to explain that visiting my family twice a month wasn't excessive, and that I wasn't choosing them over her. I offered to include her in family visits more often, but she said she didn't want to spend her weekends sitting around my parents' house, making small talk. Things got worse when my sister went through a difficult breakup and needed extra support. I started visiting more frequently to check on her and help her through a tough time. My girlfriend was furious and accused me of using my sister's problems as an excuse to avoid spending time with her. When I explained that my sister was genuinely struggling and needed family support, my girlfriend said that I wasn't responsible for fixing other people's problems, even if they were related to me. She said that my primary obligation should be to our relationship, not to my family members' drama. The breaking point came last month when my parents invited us both to join them for a weekend trip to a cabin they'd rented. I thought it would be a nice opportunity for my girlfriend to spend more quality time with my family and maybe develop better relationships with them. Instead, she completely lost it. She said she couldn't believe I expected her to spend an entire weekend trapped with my family. She said that the invitation was proof that my parents were trying to interfere in our relationship and that they were probably hoping to break us up by monopolizing my time and attention. When I said I thought she was overreacting, she accused me of always taking my family's side against her. She said that if I really loved her and was serious about our future together, I would set boundaries with my parents and prioritize our relationship over my family obligations. I ended up going to the cabin alone, which created tension with both my girlfriend and my family. My parents were hurt that she didn't come, and they started asking questions about whether everything was okay in our relationship. My girlfriend was angry that I chose the family trip over staying home with her. Since then, she's become even more hostile toward my family. She rolls her eyes when I mention them in conversation. She makes sarcastic comments about my mum's cooking or my dad's hobbies. She started referring to my family visits as running home to mommy and daddy, which is both hurtful and embarrassing. The worst part is that she started giving me ultimatums. She says that if I'm serious about building a future with her, I need to start acting like an independent adult instead of a child who can't make decisions without his parents' approval. She suggested that I should limit family visits to major holidays only, and that I should stop helping my parents with things like house projects or family events. I feel like she's asking me to choose between her and my family, which seems unfair and unrealistic. I don't think there's anything wrong with maintaining close family relationships as an adult, and I don't understand why my girlfriend sees my family as a threat to our relationship. When I've tried to talk to her about finding a compromise, she says that some things aren't negotiable. She says that in serious relationships, your partner comes first, and that if I can't accept that, then maybe we're not compatible. That story ends there. This is another classic isolation tactic, where someone tries to cut their partner off from their support system. There's nothing wrong with wanting to spend time with family twice a month, and the fact that she sees normal family relationships as competition shows how insecure and controlling she is. When someone demands that you choose between them and your family, they're essentially asking you to give up part of your identity to make them feel more secure. Healthy partners encourage good family relationships. They don't try to destroy them. Here's a story about financial secrecy and the devastating impact it can have on trust. My husband hid a secret bank account. I discovered something last week that has completely shattered my trust in my husband, and I don't know how to move forward from here. We've been married for 6 years, and I thought we had a solid foundation of honesty and transparency, especially when it came to our finances. We've always handled money as a team. We have joint checking and savings accounts. We make financial decisions together, and we've never had any major disagreements about spending or saving. I thought I knew everything about our financial situation. Last Tuesday, I was organising our tax documents when I found a bank statement that I didn't recognise. It was addressed to my husband, but it was for an account that I'd never heard of before. The statement showed a balance of over $20,000. At first, I thought it might be some kind of mistake, or maybe an old account that he'd forgotten to close. But when I looked more carefully at the statement, I could see that there had been regular deposits going into this account for over 3 years. When my husband came home from work that evening, I asked him about the account. I tried to approach it casually, thinking there might be some innocent explanation. But the look on his face when I showed him the statement told me everything I needed to know. He immediately got defensive and asked why I was going through his mail. I explained that I was organising our tax documents like I do every year, and that I hadn't been snooping. I asked him directly why he had a secret bank account that I didn't know about. After a lot of uncomfortable silence and evasion, he finally admitted that he'd been putting money from his paycheck into this separate account for the past 3 years. He said he'd started it as a surprise fund to pay for a special vacation, or maybe a down payment on a bigger house. But when I asked him why he'd kept it secret for 3 years instead of surprising me with it, he couldn't give me a straight answer. He kept saying that he'd been planning to tell me about it eventually, but that the timing never seemed right. I pressed him about how much money he'd been hiding, and he admitted that he'd been depositing about $300 per month into this account. That meant he'd been taking $900 out of our household budget every quarter without telling me. The financial implications were staggering. For 3 years, I'd been carefully managing our joint budget, sometimes stressing about whether we had enough money for things like home repairs or vacation plans. Meanwhile, my husband had been secretly accumulating a significant sum that could have eased a lot of our financial concerns. But the money wasn't even the biggest issue. The real problem was the deception. For 3 years, my husband had been lying to me every single day. Every time we discussed our finances, every time we made budget decisions together, every time I worried about our savings, he knew information that he was actively hiding from me. I asked him what else he might be hiding, and he swore that the bank account was the only secret. But how can I believe that when he's proven he's capable of maintaining such an elaborate deception for so long? When I asked him what he planned to do with the money, he said he'd been saving it for our future. He said he wanted to surprise me with it when we were ready to make a big purchase or take a special trip. He seemed genuinely confused about why I was so upset, since the money was intended for both of us anyway. I tried to explain that the secrecy was the problem, not the saving. I told him that making unilateral financial decisions and hiding money from your spouse was a form of financial infidelity. I said that partnership means making decisions together, especially decisions that affect our shared resources and budgets. He said he understood why I was upset, but that his intentions were good, and that I was overreacting to what was essentially a well-meaning surprise. He said he'd add my name to the account immediately, and that we could decide together how to use the money. But I don't know if adding my name to the account now fixes the 3 years of deception that came before it. I don't know how to trust him when he's shown that he's willing and able to maintain major secrets from me for extended periods. The worst part is wondering what other secrets might exist that I haven't discovered yet. If he could hide $20,000 for 3 years, what else might he be hiding? How many other decisions has he made without including me? How many other lies have become part of our daily life together? That story ends there. Financial infidelity is just as damaging as any other kind of betrayal, because it strikes at the heart of partnership and trust. The fact that he framed this as a surprise after being caught is particularly manipulative, because it makes her look unreasonable for being upset about deception. 3 years of secret financial decisions isn't romantic planning. It's a fundamental violation of marital partnership. When someone can lie about something this significant for this long, it makes you question everything you thought you knew about them. Our next story deals with feeling invisible in your own relationship. My boyfriend never compliments me. I've been with my boyfriend for almost 2 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times he said something genuinely nice about my appearance, or acknowledged effort I've put into something. It's gotten to the point where I feel completely invisible and unappreciated in my own relationship. I'm not someone who needs constant validation or excessive praise, but I do think that partners should occasionally acknowledge when their significant other looks nice or has done something thoughtful. I put effort into my appearance when we go out together. I cook meals for us, I plan dates and activities. I try to be a good girlfriend in all the ways I know how, but my boyfriend never seems to notice or appreciate any of it. I can spend an hour getting ready for a date, trying on different outfits, doing my hair and makeup, and when I come out ready to go, he'll just say, "Ready?" and head for the door. No comment about how I look. No acknowledgement that I've made an effort to look nice for our evening together. I've started paying attention to how he interacts with other people, and I've noticed that he's perfectly capable of giving compliments when he wants to. He'll tell his sister that she looks great when she gets a haircut. He'll compliment his co-workers on presentations or projects they've done well. He'll even comment positively on random women's posts on social media. But for some reason, he never extends that same courtesy to me. When I bring him his favourite dinner that I've spent time preparing, he'll eat it without comment. When I wear a new dress or try a different hairstyle, he doesn't seem to notice. When I do thoughtful things for him, like surprising him with tickets to something he wanted to see, he'll say thanks but never acknowledges the effort or thought that went into it. Last month, I decided to test this pattern. I got my hair cut and coloured at a salon, which was a pretty dramatic change from my usual look. I was excited about it and felt really confident when I left the salon. When my boyfriend picked me up that evening, I was sure he'd noticed the change. He didn't say a word about my hair. We spent the entire evening together, and he never mentioned that I looked different. The next day, his co-worker saw me and immediately complimented the new hairstyle, saying how great it looked and how much it suited me. My boyfriend was standing right there during this conversation, but still didn't add any comment of his own. When I later asked him privately if he'd noticed my hair, he said of course he had, but that he didn't think it was necessary to comment on it, because every detail mattered. I told him this made me feel unappreciated and invisible, like my efforts to look nice for him didn't matter at all. His response was that he loved me regardless of how I looked, so he didn't feel the need to comment on my appearance all the time. He said that constantly complimenting someone was superficial and that real love went deeper than physical attraction. I tried to explain that I wasn't asking for constant compliments, just occasional acknowledgement when I put effort into something or when I did thoughtful things for him. I said that feeling appreciated was important to me, and that his silence was starting to make me feel like he took me for granted. He said he showed his love through actions, not words, and pointed out all the things he did for me, like driving me places and helping me with technical problems. He said that if I needed verbal validation to feel loved, then maybe I was too insecure for a mature relationship. That comment really stung because it made me question whether my need for occasional appreciation was unreasonable. I started wondering if I was being too needy or if this was a legitimate relationship issue. When I talked to my friends about it, they all said that their partners regularly complimented them and made them feel appreciated. They said that acknowledging your partner's efforts was basic relationship maintenance, not some unreasonable demand for constant validation. But my boyfriend insists that I should feel secure in his love without needing him to verbalize it constantly. He says that his actions should speak louder than words and that I should appreciate the ways he does show affection instead of focusing on what I'm not getting. I don't know if I'm being too sensitive or if this is a genuine compatibility issue. I feel like I'm slowly becoming less confident and more withdrawn because I never feel seen or appreciated by the person who's supposed to love me most. That story ends there. This isn't about being needy or insecure. It's about basic relationship courtesy and emotional connection. The fact that he can compliment co-workers and social media strangers, but somehow can't manage to notice when his girlfriend gets a dramatic haircut shows. This is deliberate withholding, not just his communication style. Everyone deserves to feel appreciated and seen by their partner, and dismissing that as superficial is just cruel. Thanks for hanging out with me through this emotional roller coaster. If you enjoy listening to stories like these, or just need some white noise for when you're about to go to sleep, consider hitting that subscribe button as I read Reddit stories just like these every day. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.